Ranch owner bets a fortune that no one can get near the bull, but a boy surprises everyone. The crowd pressed against the wooden fence as another man ran out of the pen with his shirt torn and his face red with shame. Colonel Richard Thornton clapped slowly, an ironic smile on his face. "Anyone else want to try for the $50,000? Shouted the gray-haired rancher to everyone gathered there on that Saturday afternoon. The bull Thunder snorted in the center of the pen, his flared nostrils blowing hot steam into the dry Texas air. He was an imposing animal, weighing over 1,800 pounds of pure strength, with a glossy black coat and horns that looked capable of piercing a concrete wall. "Colonel, are you sure you'll really pay up?" asked Joe Miller, the town's blacksmith, still panting after his run from the pen. "My word's written right here," Richard replied, waving a piece of paper. $50,000 to whoever can get close to Thunder and touch him for at least 10 seconds. No ropes, no tricks, just courage. It was the 5th attempt of the day. Ever since the colonel had made this wild bet a week ago, men from ISARM all over the region had come to try their luck. Experienced cowboys, horse trainers, even a former rodeo bull rider had shown up. All of them had run away before even getting near the animal. Richard Thornton was known throughout the region as a man of his word, but also as someone extremely proud. At 58, he had built a cattle empire by buying failing ranches and turning them into profitable properties. His arrogance, however, grew in step with his fortune. "No one else?" he taunted again, adjusting his hat. That's when a movement caught everyone's attention. A small figure approached the fence, weaving through the adults. It was a boy no older than 8, barefoot and shirtless, wearing only a faded pair of shorts in an undefined shade between brown and green. "Hey kid, get out of here," said Tommy, one of the colonel's cowhands. "This isn't a game." The boy stopped and looked straight at Richard. His dark eyes held a determination that contrasted with his frail appearance. "I want to try," he said in a clear voice that cut through the crowd's murmurs. Laughter rippled through the onlookers. Richard studied the boy with a mix of amusement and irritation. "What's your name, kid?" "Michael James Wilson, but everyone calls me Mikey." "And how old are you, Mikey?" "8, sir." More laughter. Richard shook his head as if wasting his time. "Listen, boy, this is a man's game. Go play with toy cars in your backyard." "I don't have a house," Mikey replied without lowering his gaze. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Some in the crowd exchanged pitying glances. "What do you mean by that?" Richard asked, his voice losing some of its mocking edge. "My mom, my brother and I are staying at my Aunt Gwen's house, but she's going to have to sell it because she owes money to the bank. If she can't pay by the end of the month, we'll be on the street." The tension in the air shifted completely. Richard felt uneasy at the boy's raw honesty. "How much does your aunt owe?" $45,000. The number landed like a bomb in the conversation. It was almost exactly the amount of the bet. People began whispering among themselves. "Kid, you don't understand," Richard said, trying to regain control. "That bull has trampled men 3 times your size. He's wild, dangerous. I'm not afraid of him." "Everyone's afraid of Thunder," Joe Miller cut in. "Even me, and I work with hot iron every day." Mikey peered at the bull through the gaps in the wooden fence. The animal stood motionless in the center of the pen, calmly chewing a bundle of grass. To the boy, Thunder didn't look like a monster. He just seemed like a very large steer. "Colonel," Mikey said, turning back to Richard, "you said you'd pay $50,000 to anyone who could touch the bull for 10 seconds, right?" "I did, but then I want to try." Richard found himself in a tricky spot. If he refused, the boy, he'd look cowardly in front of everyone. If he allowed it, he'd be putting a child in danger. But there was something about Mikey's attitude that deeply irritated him, a confidence he couldn't understand. "Listen here, kid," Richard said, stepping closer to the fence. "You have no idea what you're talking about. That bull—" "Colonel," a woman's voice cut through the air from the road. Everyone turned to see a woman in her 30s running toward the group. She was visibly upset, her hair disheveled and her face red from exertion. "Mikey!" she shouted again when she spotted the boy. "Hi, Aunt Gwen," Mikey said, unfazed. Gwen Wilson reached the group breathless, pushed through the crowd and grabbed her nephew's arm. "What are you doing here? I've been looking for you all afternoon." "I came to try and win the money to save our house," Mikey replied matter-of-factly. Gwen glanced around and realized where they were. She recognized a few familiar faces and immediately understood what was happening. "Mikey, no, you can't. Auntie, we need the money," the boy said, his voice carrying a maturity beyond his years. "If I don't try, we'll end up on the streets anyway." Gwen felt her eyes well up. She was a simple woman who had taken on the responsibility of caring for her nephew and brother-in-law after her sister left to work in New York City, promising to send money that never arrived. "Auntie, let me try," Mikey insisted. "Please." Richard watched the scene with growing discomfort. He hadn't planned for his bet to turn into a family drama. "Ma'am," he said, addressing Gwen, "take the boy home. This is no place for a child." "With all due respect, Colonel," Gwen replied, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "You made a bet. You never said it was only for adults." "But it's obvious that—" "It's not obvious at all," she interrupted, with a firmness that surprised everyone. "You said you'd pay $50,000 to anyone who could touch the bull. My nephew wants to try." The crowd began to murmur. Some agreed with Gwen, while others thought it was madness to put a child at risk. "The lady's right," a voice called from the crowd. "It's cowardly to deny the boy a chance," shouted another. Richard felt pressure from all sides. His reputation as a man of his word was on the line, but the situation had spiraled out of his control. "Fine," he finally said reluctantly, "but I won't be responsible if anything happens." "Nothing will happen," Mikey said with conviction. Gwen cupped her nephew's face in her hands. "Are you sure about this?" "I am, Auntie. Trust me." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Richard reluctantly opened the gate to the pen. The creak of the hinges echoed in the tense silence that had fallen over the crowd. Thunder lifted his head, his ears twitching slightly at the movement. "Last chance to change your mind, kid," Richard said. Mikey just shook his head and took a step toward the entrance of the pen. Gwen gripped the fence so tightly, her knuckles turned white. The boy stepped into the pen with slow but steady steps. The packed dirt ground was dry, kicking up small clouds of dust with each footstep. Thunder watched him curiously but showed no aggression. "This is madness," someone in the crowd muttered. Mikey stopped about 5 yards from the bull. He looked even smaller up close, like a grain of sand before a mountain. Thunder swished his tail and took a few steps toward him. "Get out of there, kid," yelled Joe Miller. But Mikey didn't move. Instead, he began speaking softly, almost whispering. The people at the fence strained to hear, but couldn't make out his words. "What's he doing?" Gwen asked, desperate. "Looks like he's talking to the bull," replied Tommy, incredulous. Thunder moved a little closer, his nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air around the boy. He showed no signs of aggression, only curiosity. Mikey slowly extended his right hand toward the animal's muzzle. The crowd collectively held its breath. "My God," Gwen whispered. The bull sniffed the boy's hand, and to everyone's astonishment, lowered his head slightly, allowing Mikey to touch between his horns. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," said Richard, his voice a mix of surprise and irritation. Mikey stroked Thunder's forehead with gentle movements. The bull seemed to relax completely, even closing his eyes for a few seconds. 10 seconds! Someone in the crowd shouted, starting the count. 11, 12, 13, wait! The boy kept petting the animal, which remained completely docile. It was a surreal scene no one expected to witness. 20 seconds! The counting continued. Richard watched, his face growing redder by the second. His bet, which should have been impossible to win, was being beaten by an 8-year-old boy. 30 seconds! The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Mikey finally stepped back from the bull and waved at everyone, a shy smile on his face. $50,000 for the boy, someone yelled. "Colonel, pay up," shouted another. Richard approached the fence, his expression dark. When Mikey stepped out of the pen, the rancher grabbed his arm. "How'd you do that?" he demanded, his voice more annoyed than impressed. "Do what?" "Don't play dumb with me, kid. How'd you get close to Thunder without him attacking you?" Mikey shrugged. "I just talked to him." "Talked?" Richard let out a dry laugh. Bulls don't understand talking. This one does, the boy replied simply. The crowd pressed closer, everyone eager to congratulate Mikey and demand payment for the bet. Richard felt cornered and angry. Hold on, he shouted, raising his hands. The bet was to touch the bull for 10 seconds. The kid did it, I admit, but what? Gwen asked, stepping forward. But I need to make sure there was no trickery. Trickery? Gwen's voice rose an octave. What kind of trick could an 8-year-old pull? I don't know, but I'll find out, Richard insisted stubbornly. Give me a week to look into it. If everything checks out, I'll pay the 50 grand. The crowd began protesting. Shouts of cheater and coward filled the air. Colonel, Joe Miller said, you're being dishonest. We all saw the boy win fair and square. 1 week, Richard repeated firmly. That's all I need. Gwen's heart sank. 1 week was exactly the deadline she had to pay off the house debt. Colonel, please, she begged. I need that money by next Monday. It's the last day to pay the bank. That's your problem, Richard replied coldly. You should have thought about that before getting into debt. Don't you have a heart? Gwen asked, tears welling up in her eyes again. What I have is prudence, he shot back, and a sense of responsibility. I'm not paying $50,000 without absolute certainty the bet was won fairly. Mikey tugged at his aunt's skirt. Auntie, don't worry, he'll pay. How can you be so sure? She asked, bending down to his level. Because I'll come back here every day until he does. Richard overheard the comment and laughed sarcastically. Oh really, and what do you plan to do? I'll show everyone I can get close to Thunder whenever I want. Then you won't have any excuse not to pay. The idea clearly unsettled the rancher. Richard didn't want his property turning into a circus, with people coming every day to gawk at the boy who tames bulls. Listen here, kid. My name's Mikey, the boy corrected. Listen here, Mikey, Richard said, struggling to keep his temper. My ranch isn't an amusement park. You can't just keep coming here. Why not? The road's public. And you said yourself you wanted a week to investigate. Let me help with the investigation. Scattered laughter rose from the crowd. Richard realized he was being mocked by a child, and it only fueled his irritation. Fine, he said, trying to regain control. You want to come back, then come back. But just you, and only once a day, and I'll set tougher conditions. What conditions? Gwen asked suspiciously. If the boy got close to Thunder once, let him prove he can do it again. But next time it'll be different. Different how? Richard thought quickly, searching for a way to make the challenge impossible. Next time, he'll have to ride the bull. The crowd fell completely silent. Even the bravest cowboys in the area avoided trying to ride Thunder. That's insane, Gwen said. I won't allow it. Then forfeit the bet, Richard replied with a triumphant smile. Mikey looked at the bull through the fence. Thunder had gone back to grazing peacefully as if nothing had happened. I accept, the boy said. Mikey, no, Gwen cried. Auntie, trust me. I know what I'm doing. You're 8 years old. How could you possibly know? I do, he repeated with a conviction that silenced her. Richard felt a flicker of unease. He'd expected the boy to back down, but Mikey seemed even more determined. Fine, the rancher said, masking his surprise. Tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon, if you can ride Thunder and stay on for at least 30 seconds, I'll pay the $50,000 on the spot. And if he can't, someone in the crowd asked, then the bet's off and you never set foot on my property again. Deal, Mikey said before Gwen could protest. The crowd began to disperse, buzzing with excitement over what they'd just witnessed. Gwen took her nephew's hand and they started walking toward town. Mikey, have you lost your mind? She said once they were alone. Riding a bull? You could get seriously hurt. I won't get hurt, Auntie. How can you be so sure? Mikey stopped walking and looked at her solemnly. Because Thunder isn't mean, he's just sad. Sad? Mikey, he's a bull. Bulls don't get sad. Yes, they do. And I know why he's sad. Gwen crouched in front of her nephew, holding his thin shoulders. Then explain it to me. How did you figure that out? When I was talking to him, he told me. He told you? Mikey, bulls don't talk. Not with words, the boy patiently explained. But they talk in other ways, and Thunder told me he's homesick. Homesick for what? For the ranch where he was born, for the other cows, for the green pasture. He doesn't like being alone, and that small pen. Gwen felt a pang in her heart. She didn't know if her nephew was imagining things, or if he had truly noticed something the adults couldn't see. Even if that's true, she said softly, it doesn't mean it's safe to ride him. It'll be safe if I talk to him the right way. Mikey, Auntie, we need that money. If I don't try, we'll lose the house. What'll happen to us then? The question hit Gwen like a punch to the gut. She knew her nephew was right. Without the $50,000, they'd really be out on the street. Gwen had been a widow for 3 years. Her husband had left the small house as an inheritance, but he'd also left debts she hadn't known about. When the bills started coming, she tried negotiating with the bank, but the interest had turned a $15,000 debt into $45,000. She worked as a cleaner in a few homes in town, but her wages barely covered food. When her sister left for New York City in search of work, leaving Mikey and her other son, Timmy, just 5 years old, in Gwen's care, things got even harder. "All right," she finally said, her voice tight, "but I'll be there. And if I think there's any danger, you step away from that bull right away." "Deal," Mikey replied, relieved. They walked the rest of the way in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Gwen's house was on the outskirts of town, on a dirt road lined with simple buildings. It was a small 3-room house with exposed brick walls and an asbestos roof. The paint on the front was peeling, and some roof tiles were broken, letting rain in during the winter. When they arrived, they found Timmy playing in the yard with a toy car made from a sardine can and bottle caps. "Aunt Gwen!" the boy shouted when he saw them. "Where's Mikey? I looked for him all day." "I'm here, Timmy," Mikey said, walking up to his little brother. "Where were you?" Auntie was worried. "I went to try and earn money so we don't lose the house." Timmy frowned, trying to understand. "Did you get it?" "Not yet, but I will tomorrow." Gwen made a simple dinner of rice, beans, and 2 fried eggs, which she divided among the 3 of them. As they ate, Mikey told his brother what had happened at Colonel Richard's ranch. "You touched a real bull?" Timmy asked, impressed. "I did, and tomorrow I'm going to ride him." "Wow, you're as brave as Superman." Mikey smiled. Timmy was always comparing everything to the cartoon heroes he watched on the neighbor's TV. "Mikey," Gwen said after they finished eating, "I want you to tell me the truth. How did you really get close to that bull without him attacking?" The boy thought for a few seconds before answering. "Auntie, remember when my mum was sick?" The question took Gwen by surprise. Her sister had been deeply depressed in the months before she left for New York City. She'd spend whole days without speaking to anyone, staring out the window with a distant look. "I remember. She was sad, just like Thunder is, and when I talked to her, she felt better." "But your mom was a person, Mikey. Thunder's an animal. All animals have feelings, Auntie. We just don't know how to listen to them." Gwen felt her eyes well up again. There was a wisdom in her nephew's words she couldn't explain. "And what did you say to Thunder today?" "I told him I understand how he feels, that I miss my mother too, and that sometimes we get angry when we're really just sad." Timmy listened carefully, his little eyes shining with curiosity. "And what else?" asked Gwen. "I promised that if he let me touch him, I'd talk to Colonel Richard about taking better care of him." "Better care how?" "Put him in a bigger pasture. Bring other cows to keep him company, make him happier." Gwen realized her nephew wasn't just trying to make money. He genuinely cared about the animal's well-being. "Mikey, do you really think Colonel Richard will listen to an 8-year-old boy?" "He will if I prove I can take care of Thunder better than he can." After dinner, Gwen tucked both boys into the only bed in the house. She had been sleeping on the living room couch since her nephews came to live with her. "Auntie," Mikey said in the dark, "do you think my mom will come back?" The question she feared most. Gwen hadn't heard from her sister in over 2 months. The last letters spoke about how hard it was to find work in New York City and promises to send money. That never came. "She'll come back," Gwen lied softly, "once she finds a good job." "But what if we lose the house? How will she find us when she comes back?" "We won't lose the house," Gwen said. trying to convince herself as much as her nephew. That's why I need to ride Thunder. Tomorrow, Mikey said, to save our house and to help him be happy again. Gwen lay awake late into the night, staring at the ceiling and thinking how life had gotten so complicated. A year ago, she was just a simple widow trying to rebuild her life. Now she was about to let an 8-year-old boy ride a wild bull to save the family home. The next morning, Mikey woke before sunrise. He found Gwen in the kitchen making coffee. "Good morning, Auntie." "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" "I dreamed about Thunder. He was in a big pasture running with other cows." "That sounds like a nice dream." It was, and in the dream, he was happy. Gwen served coffee and bread to the boys. It was all they had in the house. "Auntie," Mikey said, "can I spend the day at Colonel Richard's ranch?" "Why?" "I want to talk to Thunder some more, so he'll trust me when it's time to ride." Gwen was nervous about the idea, but she knew trying to talk him out of it would be pointless. "All right, but you come home for lunch." Deal. After breakfast, Mikey said goodbye to Timmy and headed toward the ranch. The 2-mile walk was long for his little legs, but he'd made the trip many times before to fish in the creek near the property. Sunshine Ranch was one of the largest in the area. Besides cattle, Richard grew corn and soybeans on over 2,500 acres. The main house sat atop a hill, surrounded by well-tended gardens and a swimming pool that sparkled in the morning sun. Mikey skirted the property until he reached the pen where Thunder was kept. It was a small area, fenced with sturdy wooden planks, with a feed trough and an automatic waterer. The bull lay in the shade of a tree growing just outside the fence, its branches stretching over part of the pen. "Good morning, Thunder," Mikey said softly. The animal lifted his head and watched him for a few seconds before going back to chewing. "I came to talk to you again. This afternoon I'm going to try to ride you. Will you let me?" Thunder rose slowly and walked to the fence. Mikey reached between the planks and stroked the animal's muzzle. "I know you don't like being here alone, but if you let me ride today, I promise I'll convince Colonel Richard to give you a better home." The bull snorted softly as if responding. "You want to see your family again, don't you? I want to see my mom too, but we have to stay strong until that happens." Mikey spent the entire morning talking to Thunder, sharing stories about his life, his fears, and his hopes. The animal seemed to listen intently, sometimes moving closer to the fence, other times wandering off to graze. Around noon, Mikey heard footsteps approaching. He turned and saw Richard walking toward him, accompanied by 2 men he didn't know. "What are you doing here, kid?" Richard asked, visibly irritated. "Talking to Thunder. You said I could come back." "I said you could come back in the afternoon to try riding. I didn't say you could spend the whole morning here bothering my bull." "I'm not bothering him, I'm making friends." One of the men with Richard laughed. "Friends with a bull? That's a new one." Mikey looked at him seriously. "Animals can be friends with people too. You just have to know how to talk to them." "Listen here, boy," said the man, stepping closer to the fence. "I'm Dr. Peterson, a veterinarian. I've worked with cattle for over 20 years, and I can tell. You bulls don't make friends with anyone." "This one does," Mikey replied simply. "Prove it then," the vet challenged. Mikey glanced at Richard. "Can I go into the pen?" "Not now," the rancher answered quickly. "The bet's only for 3 this afternoon. Then I'll prove it without going in." Mikey turned to the bull and began making a soft, rhythmic sound, almost like a musical whisper. Thunder lifted his head immediately and moved toward the fence. "Come here, buddy," Mikey said gently. The bull came even closer and lowered his head, letting the boy stroke between his horns through the fence slats. "My God," the vet murmured. "How did he do that?" "Luck," Richard said, clearly annoyed. "It wasn't luck," said the third man, who had stayed quiet until now. "I'm Dr. Stevens, an animal psychologist. I work with animal-assisted therapy in New York City. What this boy is doing is far more sophisticated than it looks." "Sophisticated how?" Richard asked. "He's using nonverbal communication techniques. Watch how he modulates his voice, positions his body, moves his hands. It's instinctive but very effective." "That's nonsense," Richard grumbled. "Just a coincidence." "Colonel," the psychologist said, "with your permission, I'd like to run some tests with the boy and the bull." What kind of tests? Tests to measure the animal's stress levels before, during, and after the interaction. If my suspicions are correct, this boy has a very rare gift. Richard didn't like the idea. The more people got involved, the harder it would be for him to get out of paying the bet. I don't authorize any tests, he snapped. At 3 this afternoon, the kid tries to ride the bull. If he succeeds, he gets the money. If not, the matter is closed. But, Colonel, the psychologist began. No buts, Richard interrupted. My property, my rules. Mikey watched the argument quietly, still stroking Thunder. The animal seemed completely relaxed. Dr. Stevens, he said suddenly, can you help sad animals be happy again? I can, the psychologist answered, surprised by the question. That's my job. Then can you help Thunder? In what way? He's sad because he's alone in this small pen. He wants to be in a big pasture with other cows. The psychologist looked at Richard. That's a valid point. Social animals like cattle can show signs of depression when kept in isolation. Thunder isn't depressed, Richard said defensively. He's got food, water, shade. He has everything he needs. He has everything his body needs, corrected Mikey, but not what his heart needs. The simplicity of the observation left everyone momentarily speechless. Kid, said Richard, trying to regain control of the situation, you leave now. Come back at 3 in the afternoon for the bet, and I don't want you bothering my cattle. Before then, I don't bother. I calm. Get out of here, Richard shouted, losing his patience. Mikey said goodbye to Thunder with one last affectionate touch and began walking toward town. The 3 men watched the bull, which remained still by the fence for several minutes after the boy had walked away. Colonel, said the vet, in 20 years of practice, I've never seen anything like it. That bull is visibly calmer after interacting with the boy. That's just your imagination, Richard replied, but his voice didn't sound convincing. It's not imagination, insisted the psychologist. The animal's body posture, breathing, even the position of its ears, all indicate a state of deep relaxation. So what? That doesn't change anything. The kid still has to ride the bull. Colonel, the vet said, can I ask you a personal question? Go ahead. Why do you keep this bull isolated? He'd be much more productive as a breeder if he were in a proper social environment. Richard visibly stiffened at the question. Thunder is aggressive. He's attacked 3 ranch hands. When was that? About 6 months ago. And since then he's been in this pen? Exactly. The psychologist and the vet exchanged glances. Colonel, said Dr. Stevens, 6 months of social isolation could have completely altered the animal's behavior. What you interpreted as aggression might have been stress. And what do you suggest? That you give the boy a chance. If he really can ride the bull without incident, maybe it's time to rethink how you handle him. Richard didn't answer. He turned his back on the 2 men and walked toward the main house, clearly irritated by the direction of the conversation. Meanwhile, Mikey arrived home for lunch. He found Gwen pacing anxiously in the small living room. Auntie, what's wrong? A man from the bank came by this morning. He said if we don't pay by Monday, they'll take the house on Tuesday. But today's Saturday, we still have time. Mikey, what if you can't ride the bull? What if Colonel Richard doesn't pay anyway? I'll do it, Auntie, and he'll pay. How can you be so sure? Because I promised Thunder I'd help him, and he promised he'd help me too. Gwen sank into a kitchen chair and covered her face with her hands. Mikey, I'm so scared. The boy hugged his aunt. Don't be, everything will work out. But what if you get hurt? I won't. Thunder's my friend now. After a simple lunch of reheated rice and beans, Gwen, Mikey, and Timmy set out for the ranch. The walk there felt longer than ever for Gwen, her heart pounding harder with every step. When they reached the pen, an even larger crowd had gathered than the day before. News of the boy who had touched the fierce bull had spread through the region, drawing curious onlookers from nearby towns. Richard stood near the fence, speaking quietly with a well-dressed man in a suit and tie. Who's that? Gwen asked a neighbor in the crowd. That's Dr. Williams, the Colonel's lawyer. Probably here to handle the bet paperwork. Mikey approached Richard. Good afternoon, Colonel. I'm here to ride Thunder. Richard looked at the boy with a dark expression. Before that, kid, you need to sign a paper. What paper? The lawyer stepped forward. It's a liability waiver. declaring that you are riding the bull of your own free will and releasing the colonel from any liability in case of an accident. He's 8 years old, protested Gwen. He can't sign anything. Then you sign for him, the lawyer replied coldly. And if I don't sign, no bet. Gwen found herself in yet another dilemma. Signing that paper meant taking full responsibility for what might happen to Mikey. Auntie, the boy said softly, sign it. It'll be okay. With a trembling hand, Gwen signed the document. The lawyer tucked the papers into a leather briefcase. Now we can begin, said Richard. Mikey walked to the gate of the pen. Thunder stood at the center, watching the commotion with curiosity. Hi, buddy, Mikey whispered. It's time. The bull approached the fence and lowered his head, letting the boy pet him. Remember what we talked about? Will you let me climb on your back? Thunder made a low sound, almost like a purr. I'll take that as a yes, Mikey said, smiling. Richard reluctantly opened the gate. The crowd fell completely silent. Mikey stepped into the pen slowly, his small footprints kicking up dust from the dry ground. Thunder watched him closely, but showed no signs of aggression. Now we'll see if the kid's really brave, someone in the crowd murmured. Mikey approached the bull's left side. The animal was too tall for him to climb easily. Can you lower yourself a little for me? Mikey asked gently. To everyone's astonishment, Thunder partially lay down, bending his front legs, but keeping his hind legs upright. I can't believe what I'm seeing, the vet whispered. Mikey placed his hands on the bull's back and, with some effort, managed to position himself atop the animal. Thunder rose slowly, lifting the boy over 6 feet off the ground. The crowd collectively held its breath. 1 second, someone shouted, starting to count. 2 seconds. 3. Mikey stayed balanced on the bull, holding onto the animal's neck fur with one hand and waving to the crowd with the other. 10 seconds. 15. 20. Thunder walked calmly around the pen, as if giving a ride to a friend on his back. 25, 30. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Mikey had managed to stay on the bull for 30 seconds without the animal showing any aggression. $50,000. Pay up, Colonel, several voices yelled. Mikey climbed down with Thunder's help, as the bull lowered himself again to make it easier. Thank you, buddy, Mikey said, stroking the animal's muzzle before leaving the pen. The crowd rushed to congratulate him. Gwen hugged him with tears in her eyes. You did it, sweetheart. You did it. Told you I would, Mikey replied, grinning. Everyone turned to Richard, waiting for him to uphold his end of the deal. The rancher stood by the fence, his face red with deep irritation. Well, Colonel, asked Joe Miller, gonna pay the 50 grand? Richard took a deep breath before answering. No. A murmur of outrage spread through the crowd. What do you mean, no? Gwen asked, disbelieving. My nephew did exactly what you asked. The deal was for him to ride the bull, Richard said, his voice calculated. But I didn't specify what kind of ride. What does that mean? It means anyone can ride a tame bull. The challenge was to ride a wild one. But Thunder is wild, someone in the crowd protested. Everyone knows that. He was wild, Richard corrected with a sly smile. Now, after whatever this kid did to him, he's just a pet. The crowd began to protest violently. Shouts of cheat and deadbeat echoed through the air. This is dishonesty, Gwen shouted. You're making up excuses. I'm not making anything up, Richard replied coldly. A wild bull doesn't let anyone ride it peacefully. If this kid managed to ride it, it's because the bull isn't wild anymore. But he did it because he has a way with animals, argued the vet. That doesn't change the fact that he completed the challenge. In my interpretation, he didn't, Richard said firmly. Mikey, who had stayed quiet during the whole argument, stepped closer to the rancher. Colonel, do you want me to ride a bull that's really wild? I do, but since you've already handled this one, it doesn't count anymore. Then bring another bull. The suggestion took Richard by surprise. He hadn't expected the boy to still want to try. Another bull? Yes, one I've never seen before. If I can ride it too, will you pay the 50,000? Richard thought quickly. He had other bulls on the ranch, all truly aggressive. If he brought one of them, the boy certainly wouldn't even get close. Fine, he said with a confident smile. But now the rules change. If you can't ride it, not only do you lose the bet, but you and your family are banned from setting foot on my property forever. I accept, Mikey said before Gwen could protest. Mikey, no, she cried. This is enough. We don't need to risk more. Yes, we do, Auntie. Otherwise, we'll lose our home anyway. Richard turned to one of his ranch hands. Tommy, bring... Hurricane. A murmur of unease spread through the crowd. Hurricane was known as the most aggressive bull in the region. It had seriously injured 2 ranch hands in recent years. Colonel, the vet said worriedly, Hurricane is really dangerous. Maybe it's not wise. The kid asked for another bull, Richard replied. Now he'll have to deal with the consequences. 20 minutes later, Tommy returned driving a trailer. From inside came the sounds of aggressive kicks and snorts. Everyone move back, the ranch hand shouted as he positioned the trailer near the pen. The sounds coming from inside the compartment were terrifying. Hurricane was clearly agitated and angry from the transport. Mikey, Gwen said desperately. Let's go, this is madness. I can't give up now, Auntie. Yes, you can. Life is more important than money. But without money, we won't have a life, the boy replied with cruel logic. Richard personally supervised Hurricane's transfer from the trailer to the pen. The bull was even bigger than Thunder, with reddish fur and visible scars on its body, evidence of fights with other animals. As soon as it was released into the pen, Hurricane began running back and forth, snorting and pawing at the ground. Its aggression was obvious. So, kid? Richard asked sarcastically. Still want to try your luck? Mikey watched Hurricane for a few minutes. The animal seemed truly different from Thunder. There was no sadness in its eyes, only rage. Can I talk to it first? Mikey asked. You can try, Richard replied, certain the boy would back down. Mikey approached the fence slowly. Hurricane noticed him and turned toward him, nostrils flared and head lowered in an attack stance. Hi, Mikey said softly. My name's Mikey. Hurricane took a few threatening steps toward the fence. Several people in the crowd instinctively stepped back. You're angry, huh? Mikey continued, keeping his voice calm. Why are you angry? The bull snorted loudly and scraped the ground with its hooves, kicking up clouds of dust. Oh, I get it, Mikey said after a few seconds of watching. You're not angry, you're in pain. In pain? Asked the veterinarian, stepping closer. Yes. Look how he's favoring his right hind leg and his left ear won't stop twitching. The veterinarian observed more closely and realized Mikey was right. There was something off about the animal's posture. Doctor, said Mikey, turning to the veterinarian, can you examine him? Not now, Richard interrupted quickly. The bet is to ride the bull as he is. But if he's in pain, the veterinarian began. I don't want to hear it, Richard cut in. The kid asked for another bull. I brought one. Now it's ride or back out. Mikey turned, his attention back to Hurricane. The animal was still agitated, but there was something in his behavior the boy was trying to decipher. Do you have a toothache? Mikey suddenly asked. Hurricane stopped moving for a second, as if he'd understood the question. That's it, Mikey muttered more to himself. That's why you're so angry. The boy began making the same soft, rhythmic sound he'd used with Thunder. Hurricane tilted his head slightly, as if trying to understand. It hurts. A lot, huh? Mikey said with compassion. When my tooth hurt, I got mad at everyone too. Slowly, Hurricane moved closer to the fence. He still showed signs of aggression, but there was curiosity in his behavior now. Can I take a look? Mikey asked, reaching out his hand. Hurricane sniffed the boy's hand, but didn't let him touch. It's okay, Mikey said patiently. You don't know me yet, but I want to help you. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The crowd watched in absolute silence. Even Richard seemed to be paying attention to the interaction between the boy and the bull. You know what I think? Mikey said. I think no one ever asked you what was hurting. They just thought you were mean. Hurricane lowered his head slightly but kept his distance. I get it, Mikey continued. When you're in pain, it's hard to trust people. The boy stood by the fence for another 15 minutes, talking softly to Hurricane. Gradually, the bull moved closer, until he finally let Mikey touch his muzzle through the slats. Can I go in now? Mikey asked Richard. The rancher was visibly annoyed by how things were unfolding, but couldn't back down without looking cowardly. "Go ahead," he grumbled. Mikey stepped into the pen slowly. Hurricane watched him carefully but showed no more aggression. "Can I check your mouth?" the boy asked. To everyone's surprise, Hurricane lowered his head, letting Mikey look inside. "Doctor," Mikey called to the veterinarian, "come see this." "I'm not stepping into that pen," replied Dr. Peterson. "Then look from here. His back tooth is broken. It must be inflamed." The veterinarian moved closer to the fence and saw what Mikey had discovered. There was indeed a broken molar, with clear signs of infection. "My goodness," the veterinarian murmured. "This animal must have been suffering for weeks." "Doctor," Mikey said, "if we treat his pain, will he calm down?" "Most likely. Animals in pain often get aggressive as a defense." Richard overheard the conversation and grew even angrier. If Hurricane wasn't truly mean, his plan had failed again. "Enough talk," he snapped. "Are you going to ride the bull or not?" Mikey looked at Hurricane. "Can I climb on your back? I promise I'll ask the doctor to fix your tooth afterward." Hurricane stared at him for a few seconds, then, astonishingly, lay down just as Thunder had done earlier. "Unbelievable," someone in the crowd whispered. Mikey carefully climbed onto Hurricane's back. The bull rose slowly, carrying the boy with gentleness. 1 second, the count began. 2, 3. This time, Mikey stayed on the bull for 45 seconds as Hurricane walked calmly around the pen. When he climbed down, the crowd erupted into even more enthusiastic applause than the first time. "Pay up, Colonel," several voices shouted. "Pay the 50,000. Richard was visibly desperate. His 2 attempts to make the challenge impossible had failed. "This doesn't count," he yelled. "The kid's pulling some kind of trick." "What trick?" asked Gwen. "Everyone saw it was fair. He must have given the bull something, some kind of sedative." "Colonel," the vet intervened, "I examined both animals. There's no sign of sedation. What this boy did was pure skill." "I don't believe it," Richard shouted, completely losing control. "An 8-year-old kid can't be better than experienced ranch hands." "Yes, he can," Mikey said calmly, "because I listen to what they're feeling." "That's nonsense." "No, it's not." Thunder was sad because he was lonely. Hurricane was angry because he had a toothache. When we understand what animals are feeling, they trust us. Richard looked around and realized he'd lost the crowd's support entirely. Every face stared at him with disapproval. "Colonel," said Joe Miller, "you gave your word. You have to pay." I need to talk to my lawyer," Richard stammered. "The lawyer's right there," someone in the crowd pointed out. "Ask him." Everyone turned to Dr. Williams, who had watched everything in silence. "Doctor," Richard asked, desperately, "is there any legal way I don't have to pay?" The lawyer shook his head. "Colonel, the boy met the exact terms of the bet twice. You have to pay." "But..." "No buts. You set the rules and they were followed." Richard found himself completely cornered. He looked at Mikey, who watched him with a serene expression. "I'll pay," he finally said, his voice full of reluctance. "But not today. I need to go to the bank." "When?" Gwen asked anxiously. "Monday." "Monday's too late," she protested. "I have to pay the bank Monday morning. Then come get the money Sunday night." "What time?" 8 o'clock, no earlier." Gwen didn't like the tight deadline but had no choice. "Fine. We'll be here Sunday at 8. "Come then," Richard said, turning his back on everyone and walking toward the main house. The crowd began to disperse, everyone chatting excitedly about what they'd witnessed. Mikey said goodbye to Thunder and Hurricane before leaving with his family. "Doctor," he said to the vet before leaving, "are you really going to take care of Hurricane's tooth?" "Yes, son, I'll come back tomorrow to treat him." "Thank you, he'll be much happier." On the way home, Gwen couldn't stop hugging her nephew. "I can't believe you did it, sweetheart. Everything's going to work out." "I told you it would," Mikey replied, smiling. "How did you know Hurricane had a toothache?" "He was shaking his head the same way I did when my tooth hurt." "And how did you know what to do?" "I can't really explain, I just feel what they're feeling." Timmy, who had watched everything quietly, tugged his brother's shirt. "Mikey, are you like Dr. Doolittle?" "Who?" The doctor who talks to animals in the TV movie. I don't know, I don't talk to them. I listen to them. That night, the family's small house was happier than it had been in months. Gwen managed to buy meat for dinner, anticipating the arrival of the money. "Tomorrow we'll start a new life," she said as they set the table. "With $50,000, I can pay off the house, and there'll still be money left for you both. To go to a better school." "Auntie," said Mikey, "can I ask for something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Anything. When we get the money, can you ask Colonel Richard to put Thunder in a bigger pasture? Is that all you want?" "Yes. He promised he'd help me. Now I have to help him." Gwen smiled and kissed her nephew's forehead. "I'll ask him." "I promise." On Sunday evening, the three arrived at Sunshine Ranch promptly at 8 o'clock. Richard waited for them on the porch of the main house, but he didn't seem pleased at all. "You're right on time," he said coldly. "Did you bring the money?" Gwen asked directly. "I did, but before I hand it over, I want to make one thing clear." "What?" "After I pay this bet, I don't want to see any of you on my property ever again." "Why?" asked Mikey. "Did I do something wrong?" "Yes, you did. You ruined my bull's reputation. Now everyone around here will think my cattle are tame." "But your bulls weren't really fierce," Mikey explained. "They were just sad or in pain." "I don't care. I want you to stay away from here." "Colonel," Gwen said, "my nephew only helped your animals. You should be grateful." "Grateful? He cost me $50,000. You were the one who made the bet." "A mistake. I won't." "Repeat." Richard went inside and returned with a leather briefcase. He opened it on the porch table, revealing stacks of bills. $50,000, he said. "You can count it." Gwen stepped forward, her hands shaking. It was more money than she'd ever seen in her life. "No need to count," she said. They trust you." "Better count it," Richard insisted. "I don't want you coming back later saying something's missing." Gwen quickly counted the bills. Everything was there. "Thank you, Colonel," she said, closing the briefcase. "Don't thank me, I just kept my word." "Colonel," Mikey said before they left, "can I ask one last favor?" "What favor?" "Can you put Thunder in a bigger pasture? He gets so sad alone in that small pen." Richard glared at the boy. "Kid, you just cost me 50 grand. You really think I'm going to do anything else you ask?" "It's not for me, it's for him." "The answer's no. Thunder stays right where he is." Mikey lowered his head, visibly upset. "Okay, thanks for paying the bet." As they walked back to town, Gwen noticed her nephew was quieter than usual. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "I'm sad about Thunder. He'll still be alone. You did what you could. Sometimes we can't help everyone. But I promised him. And you kept your part of the promise. You got the money by touching him. But he'll still be sad." Gwen didn't know what to say. She put her hand on her nephew's shoulder and they walked the rest of the way in silence. On Monday morning, Gwen went straight to the bank with the $50,000. The manager was surprised to see her with such a large sum. "Mrs. Gwen, where did all this money come from?" "My nephew won it in a bet." "In a bet?" "It's a long story," she said, smiling. "The important thing is I can pay off the house." After paying the $45,000 for the debt, Gwen left the bank with the remaining $5,000 and a feeling of relief she hadn't felt in months. For the first time in a long, while they didn't have to worry about ending up on the streets, the house was saved. When she got home, she found Mikey and Timmy playing in the backyard. The older boy seemed to be trying his best to stay cheerful, but Gwen noticed he was still thinking about the bulls. "Mikey," she said, approaching him, "do you want to come shopping with me? We can buy new clothes for both of you." "Okay, Auntie. And we'll also get some good food for lunch, maybe even a cake to celebrate." Mikey smiled, but it was forced. "You're still thinking about Thunder, aren't you?" Gwen asked. "Yeah. He's probably waiting for me to come back and talk to him. But the Colonel forbade us from going there. I know, but Thunder doesn't." Gwen's heart ached. Her nephew had saved the family, yet he was suffering because he couldn't help the animal he considered a friend. "You know what we'll do?" she said suddenly. "We'll write a letter to the Colonel." "A letter?" "Yes, explaining how Thunder feels and asking him to take better care of the animal. Do you think he'll read it? I don't know, but at least we'll have tried. They spent the afternoon writing the letter. Mikey dictated while Gwen wrote, detailing how Thunder behaved when alone and how much happier he was with company. At the end, Mikey asked to add one last line. "Colonel, I don't want anything else from you. Just take good care of Thunder. He's a good bull who only needs a little kindness." "It's ready," Gwen said, rereading the letter. "I'll take it to him tomorrow." "I want to come too." "You can't. He banned us from the property." "Then I'll wait by the road. If he wants to talk to me, I'll be there." On Tuesday morning, Gwen walked to Sunshine Ranch with the letter in hand. Mikey went with her to the gate and waited outside, as promised. Gwen went straight to the main house and knocked. A maid answered. "Good morning. I'd like to speak with Colonel Richard." "He's in his office. I'll let him know." A few minutes later, Richard appeared at the door, looking annoyed. "What do you want? Didn't I say I didn't want you here?" "I came to deliver a letter," Gwen said, holding out the paper. "What letter?" "From my nephew. For you." Richard took the letter reluctantly and skimmed it. His expression hardened further. "This is emotional blackmail," he said, handing it back. "It's a sincere request from a child who cares about an animal." "I don't care. I already told you. I want nothing to do with you." "Colonel, just think about what's written there. My nephew has a special gift with animals. Maybe he could help you in other ways." "I don't need anyone's help," Richard snapped. "Least of all an 8-year-old kid." "But no buts. Leave and take this letter with you." Gwen walked back to the road, her head down. Mikey was waiting on a rock. "He didn't even read it properly, did he?" the boy asked, seeing her expression. "He read it, but he wasn't interested." "Then there's nothing else we can do." "Oh yes, there is," said a voice behind them. They turned and saw Dr. Stevens, the animal psychologist, approaching. "Doctor," Mikey said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came to talk to you, may I?" "Of course," Gwen replied. "Mikey, since Saturday I haven't stopped thinking about what you did with those bulls. What you have is far more than just a way with animals." "Really? It's a rare gift. I know people who've studied animal behavior for decades and couldn't do what you did instinctively. So I'd like to make you an offer." "What kind of offer?" Gwen asked warily. "I work with animal-assisted therapy in New York City. We have a center where we use horses, dogs, and other animals to help people with emotional and physical challenges." "And what does that have to do with us?" "I'd like Mikey to come work with us, obviously respecting his age and making sure he continues his studies." "Work doing what?" "Helping to calm stressed animals, preparing them for therapeutic work. His talent would be very valuable to us." Gwen fell silent, processing the proposal. "And how much would you pay?" she finally asked. $5,000 a month, plus all travel and lodging expenses whenever we needed Mikey's services. It was a significant amount for the family. With $5,000 a month, they could live comfortably and still save for the future. "Mikey," Gwen said, "what do you think? Can I help animals that are suffering?" "You can," replied Dr. Stevens. "Many animals come to us traumatized from abuse or accidents. Your gift would be essential to rehabilitating them." "Then I accept." "But you'd have to go to New York City," Gwen said, worried. "I don't want you going alone." "You can all come," the doctor said. "We have housing on the property for employees' families." "Even Timmy?" "Of course, and there's an excellent school near the center. The employees' children go there." Gwen looked at Mikey and saw the boy's eyes shining with excitement. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, but I'd like an answer by Friday. I'm heading back to New York City this weekend." "All right." After the doctor left, Gwen and Mikey walked home in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. "Auntie," Mikey said when they got home, "do you want to go to New York City?" "I don't know, it's far from our life here. But there's not much future for us here." "That's true. And in New York City, I could help a lot of animals." "That's also true." "So are we going?" Gwen sighed. "We'll talk to Timmy and decide together." That night at dinner, they explained the situation to Timmy. The 5-year-old was thrilled by the idea. "Are we going to live in a big city like in the movies?" "It'll be different from the movies," Gwen explained, "but it'll be on a special ranch where they take care of animals." Can I see the animals? You can, Mikey replied. And I'll teach you how to talk to them. You can really talk to animals? I can hear what they're feeling. It's almost the same thing. On Wednesday morning, Gwen woke up with a decision made. They were going to New York City. Mikey, she said over breakfast, we're accepting the doctor's offer. Really? Really? We don't have much of a future here anyway, and you need to develop your gift. What about the house? I'll rent it out. That way we'll have extra income and won't lose the property. Mikey hugged his aunt tightly. Thank you for believing in me. I've always believed in you, sweetheart. On Thursday, Gwen went to see Dr. Stevens at the hotel where he was staying. Doctor, we've decided to accept your offer. That's wonderful. You won't regret it. When do we need to be ready? I can give you 2 weeks to get everything in order. How does that sound? That's enough time. Great. I'll leave my card with my contact info. If you have any questions, just call me. Doctor, Gwen said before leaving, one last question. Go ahead. Does my nephew really have something special? Or is it just our impression? The irate doctor smiled. Mrs. Gwen, in 15 years of practice, I've never seen anything like what your nephew can do. He has a genuine and very rare gift. And you think he can help a lot of people? I'm certain he can, and a lot of animals too. Gwen left the hotel with a mix of anxiety and hope. The family's life was about to change completely. Over the next week, they prepared for the move. Gwen managed to rent the house to a family that had recently moved to town. The rent would provide an extra income of $50 a month. Mikey spent the last few days visiting the places where he had played as a child. He wanted to say goodbye to every little corner he knew. Auntie, he said the day before the trip, can I stop by Colonel Richard's ranch to say goodbye to Thunder? But he banned us from going there. I don't need to go in. I can stay by the road and call Thunder. If he's in the pasture near the fence, he'll hear me. Gwen thought for a few seconds. All right, but only for a few minutes. They walked to Sunshine Ranch in the late afternoon. To their surprise, Thunder was no longer in the small pen where he usually stayed. Where is he? Mikey asked, worried. I don't know. Let's look around. They circled the property and spotted a larger pasture with several animals. In the middle of the group was Thunder. Look, Mikey shouted, pointing. He's with other cows. Indeed, Thunder was grazing peacefully alongside a group of cows and calves. He seemed completely relaxed and happy. Colonel Richard moved him, Gwen said, surprised. Thunder, Mikey called from the road. The bull lifted his head and looked toward the voice. When he recognized Mikey, he trotted happily toward the fence. Hi, buddy, Mikey said, reaching his hand through the wire fence. Are you happy now? Thunder let the boy pet him and made a soft sound, almost like a purr. He really is happy, Gwen said, touched. He is. Look how his eyes are shining. Mikey, a voice said behind them. They turned and saw Richard approaching. The rancher didn't seem angry like before. Colonel, Gwen said nervously, we just came to say goodbye. We're moving to New York City tomorrow. Moving? Yes. Mikey got a job there. A job? An 8-year-old boy? It's a special job, Gwen explained. He's going to help animals that are suffering. Richard was silent for a few seconds, watching Mikey and Thunder interact. Kid, he finally said, I need to ask you something. What? Forgiveness. The word took everyone by surprise. Richard had never shown any sign of regret before. Forgiveness for what? Mikey asked. For being stubborn. For not listening when you said my bulls were suffering. You put Thunder in a bigger pasture. I did. And I also took care of Hurricane's tooth. The vet said you were right. The animal had a serious infection. How is he now? Completely different. Gentle as a lamb. That's good. Kid. I mean, Mikey, Richard corrected himself. You taught me an important lesson. Taught you what? That sometimes we need to stop talking and start listening. Mikey smiled. That's what my mom always told me. Your mom is a wise woman. So I was, Mikey corrected softly. She left for New York City, and we don't know when she's coming back. Richard looked at Gwen, who nodded in confirmation. I'm sorry, the rancher said sincerely. It's okay. She'll come. Back one day. I'm sure she will. They stood in silence for a few minutes, watching Thunder play with the other animals in the pasture. Colonel, Mikey said, can I give you some advice? Go ahead. Talk more to your animals. They have a lot to say. I'll try. And if any of them get angry or sad, remember it might be because something hurts. I'll remember. Mikey said goodbye to Thunder with one last pat and turned to leave. Mikey, Richard called. Yes? If you ever come back to visit, you'll always be welcome on my ranch. Thank you, Colonel. And if you need anything in New York City, you can call me. Richard took a card from his pocket and handed it to the boy. I don't read too well yet, said Mikey shyly. Your aunt knows how, and when you get better at it, you can write to me and tell me how you're doing. I will write, I promise. As they walked back home, Gwen couldn't hide her emotion. I can't believe Colonel Richard moved Thunder. I knew he was a good person deep down, said Mikey. How did you know? By his eyes. There was sadness in them too. Sadness? Why? I don't know. But just like Thunder, he just needed someone to listen. The next morning, a van from the therapy center in New York City picked them up at home. Dr. Stevens had sent a driver especially to transport the family. Gwen took one last look at the little house where they had lived through such hard times, and also the victory that had changed their lives. Ready to go? Asked Mikey. Ready. During the trip to New York City, Mikey stared out the window, watching the landscape gradually shift from rural to urban. Auntie, he said as they neared the city, do you think we'll be happy? There. I think so. You'll get to help a lot of animals. And what will you do? The doctor said they need help with administration. I can work there too. And Timmy will go to a good school, Sciences, and both of you will have a much better future than you would have had here. But we'll never forget where we came from, right? Never, Gwen promised. The Animal-Assisted Therapy Center was located on a 50-acre property in the New York City metropolitan area. There were horses, dogs, cats, and even some farm animals used in treatments. When they arrived, Dr. Stevens greeted them personally. Welcome to your new home, he said, smiling. It's so big, said Timmy, amazed. It is, and there's a lot of important work to be done here. They were taken to a small but comfortable house on the property. It had 3 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and a spacious living room. This house is yours, said the doctor. Make yourselves at home. Doctor, Gwen said, we don't know how to thank you. No need to thank me. You're here to work, and believe me, we'll need Mikey's talent very much. When does he start? Take a few days to settle in. On Monday, I'll introduce you to the whole team. That night, for the first time in months, the family slept without worrying about the future. They knew they had found not just work, but a new chance at life. Mikey adapted quickly to the center. Within days, he was already working with animals rescued from abusive situations. His first case was a mare named Star, who had been abandoned, and arrived at the center extremely frightened and aggressive. She won't let anyone near her, the vet explained. She's been like this for 2 weeks. Mikey slowly approached the pen where Star was isolated. The mare watched him warily, her ears pinned back in warning. Hi, Star, he said softly. You're scared, aren't you? The mare snorted and backed into the far corner. I get it, Mikey continued. You don't know if you can trust people. Slowly, he began making the same low rhythmic sound he used with the bulls. Star tilted her head slightly, as if listening. You're not in danger anymore, Mikey said. The people here are good. They want to help you. Gradually, the mare stepped closer. Within half an hour, Mikey was able to touch her for the first time since she'd arrived at the center. Unbelievable, the vet murmured. How did he do that? It's his gift, replied Dr. Stevens, watching from a distance. It's something that can't be taught. In the following weeks, Mikey worked with dozens of traumatized animals. Each case was a victory, not just for the animal, but for the entire team at the center. Gwen got a job in administration, helping organize files and schedule treatments. Timmy enrolled in the local school and quickly made friends. Auntie, Mikey said one night during dinner, do you think my mom would be proud of us? I'm sure she would, Gwen replied. You're helping so many animals, and we're living well. We are, much better than I ever imagined possible. You know what I like most about here? What? That every animal I help ends up happy. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, 3 months after moving to New York City, Mikey was already considered a key member of the center's team. His work had helped rehabilitate over 40 animals. Mikey, Dr. Stevens said one Friday morning, I need to talk to you. Did I do something wrong? On the contrary, you've done everything right. So much so that we've received a special invitation. What kind of invitation? To attend an international conference on animal-assisted therapy. What's that? It's a gathering of people from all over the world who work with animals to help others. And what will I do there? You'll showcase your work. Tell them how you communicate with traumatized animals. Mikey grew nervous at the idea. But I don't speak well, and I don't know how to explain what I do. You don't need to explain. You just need to demonstrate. Demonstrate? How? By working with a troubled animal in front of all the experts. What if I can't do it? You will, you always do. The conference would be held in Washington, D.C. the following week. Mikey would travel with Dr. Stevens and 2 other staff members from the center. Can I bring my aunt? Mikey asked. Of course, she's part of our team too. The night before the trip, Gwen was more nervous than her nephew. What if he gets scared in front of all those people? He won't, Dr. Stevens said. Mikey has a natural confidence when he's with animals. But they're important people. Scientists, veterinarians, and they'll all be impressed by his talent. On the day of the trip, Timmy stayed at school under the care of one of the center's staff. It was the first time the siblings had been apart since their father left. Take good care of Auntie and Mikey, Timmy said, hugging them both. We'll be back soon, Mikey promised. In Washington, D.C., the conference brought together over 300 professionals from 15 countries. Mikey had never seen so many important people in one place. I'm nervous, he admitted to his aunt as they walked through the convention center halls. It's normal, but remember, you've already helped so many animals. This will just be one more. But this time a whole crowd will be watching, and they all want to learn from you. Mikey's presentation was scheduled for Saturday afternoon. The animal chosen for the demonstration was a large dog rescued from illegal fights. This dog has been with us for 6 months, the attending veterinarian explained to the attendees. We still haven't been able to get him to trust humans. What's his name? Mikey asked. He doesn't have one yet. He arrived in such poor condition that our priority was his physical health. Can I give him a name? Of course. Mikey observed the dog for a few minutes. It was a strong animal, with visible scars across its body, but it had hidden at the back of the cage as soon as it noticed people nearby. I'll call him Courage, said Mikey. Why? Because he was brave enough to survive everything he's been through. Mikey slowly approached the cage. Courage let out a low growl but didn't move. Hi, Courage, the boy said softly. My name's Mikey. The dog stopped growling and tilted its head as if trying to understand. You've suffered a lot, huh? Mikey continued. But it's over now. No one's going to hurt you anymore. Gradually, Courage moved toward the front of the cage. His eyes still showed fear, but there was curiosity too. Can I open the cage? Mikey asked the vet. I'm not sure it's safe. He won't attack me, Mikey said confidently. He's just scared. The cage was opened and Mikey stepped in slowly. Courage shrank into a corner but didn't try to attack. You don't trust big people, do you? Mikey said, crouching down to make himself smaller. I get it. Big people can be scary. The boy stayed crouched, motionless for several minutes. He just spoke quietly to the dog, telling stories about his own life. You know, Courage, I've been scared too. When my mom left, I thought I'd never see her again. Slowly, Courage moved closer. He sniffed Mikey's hand and, to everyone's surprise, let the boy pet him. That's it, Courage, Mikey said gently. You really are brave. In 20 minutes, Mikey had accomplished what the specialized team hadn't in 6 months. Courage was lying beside him, completely relaxed. Unbelievable, murmured one of the foreign vets. How did a child manage that? It's a natural gift, replied Dr. Stevens, something that can't be taught. After the demonstration, Mikey was surrounded by dozens of experts eager to ask questions. How did you know the dog was scared and not aggressive? asked a vet from Germany. By his eyes, Mikey answered. The eyes of an angry animal are different from those of a scared one. And how do you calm animals so quickly? I listen to what they're feeling and talk about it. But animals don't speak, not with words. But they speak with their bodies, their eyes, the sounds they make. The questions went on for over an hour. Mikey answered them all with the natural simplicity of a child, but his responses impressed even the most experienced specialists. This boy has something very special, an American psychologist told Dr. Stevens. Have you considered studying what he does scientifically? We have, but our priority is letting him use his gift to help animals, of course, but understanding how he does it could help teach others. It's a possibility we're considering. On the flight back to New York City, Mikey was quiet, staring out the airplane window. What are you thinking about? Asked Gwen. How many animals are suffering in the world? Why? Those people at the conference talked about mistreated animals in so many countries. There must be millions of them. And that makes you sad? It does. But it also makes me want to help even more. You're already helping so much. But I can do more. I can teach others how to listen to animals. Gwen smiled. Her nephew was growing up, but he still had the same kindness he always had. You want to teach others? I do. I don't know if I can, but I want to try. Back at the center, Mikey returned to his work routine with even more energy. The conference experience had boosted his confidence and his desire to help. A week later, he received a letter. Gwen read it to him, since his reading skills were still limited. It's from Colonel Richard, she said, surprised. What did he write? Gwen read the letter aloud. Dear Mikey, I hope you're doing well and happy in New York City. Here at the ranch, everything is going great. Thunder is still in the big pasture and is happier than ever. Hurricane has also fully recovered. I have some news to share. I hired a special veterinarian who understands animal behavior. He's teaching me how to take better care of all my animals. I also wanted to tell you that whenever someone visits the ranch, I tell them the story of the brave boy who managed to ride my bulls. You've become famous around here. If you ever come back to visit, you'll find much happier animals. And that's thanks to you. With affection, Richard Thornton. It's wonderful that he learned to take better care of the animals, Mikey said, smiling. You taught him an important lesson. I didn't teach anything. I just listened to what the bulls were trying to say. That night, Mikey wrote a letter back to Richard. His handwriting was still childish, but the words were full of warmth. Colonel Richard, I was so happy to get your letter. Here in New York City, I've been helping a lot of animals who were sad or scared. One day I want to come back and see Thunder and Hurricane. I bet they've changed a lot. Thank you for taking such good care of them. Your friend Mikey. Gwen helped correct a few mistakes and they sent the letter the next day. 3 months later, Mikey received an offer that would change his life again. A university in New York City wanted to start a research project on human-animal communication and wanted him to participate. Would it be like a study? He asked. Dr. Stevens. Yes, they want to understand how you do what you do, and they also want to see if they can teach others. But would I keep working here? You would. The study would only be twice a week. What about my family? Everyone could join if they wanted. It would be a chance for you all to study too. Gwen was excited about the possibility. She had long dreamed of going back to school but never had the opportunity. Could I take a course? She asked. You could. The university offers scholarships for families involved in research projects. What about Timmy? He could attend the university school. It's one of the best in New York City. The family decided to accept the offer. It was a unique chance to grow together. The research project revealed fascinating aspects of Mikey's gift. Scientists discovered he had an exceptional ability to read animals' non-verbal signals. He can identify micro-expressions and micro-movements that we don't even notice, explained the professor leading the project. Can that be taught? Gwen asked. Partially. We can teach people to pay closer attention to the signals, but what Mikey has naturally is very hard to replicate. Mikey's work began gaining international recognition. Articles about his methods were published in major scientific journals. You're getting famous, Timmy told his brother. I don't want to be famous, I just want to help animals. But if you're famous, more people will learn about your work. That's true. A year after starting the university project, Mikey received an invitation that moved him deeply. An international animal protection organization wanted him to visit several countries to teach his methods. It would be a 3-month trip, Dr. Stevens explained, visiting animal rehabilitation centers in Europe and the United States. What about my family? Everyone could go. It would be an incredible educational opportunity. But what about our work here? The work here will continue. You'd come back with so much more experience to apply at the center. The trip was a transformative experience for the whole family. Mikey worked with animals in situations he had never imagined, from traumatized elephants in African sanctuaries to bears rescued from circuses in Europe. Everywhere they visited, Mikey left his mark. Animals that had gone years without responding to treatment began trusting humans after just a few sessions with him. "How do you do it?" asked a veterinarian in France. "I'm not doing anything special," Mikey replied through a translator. "I just listen to what they're trying to say." "But how did you learn to listen?" "I didn't. I've always known. My mom said I've been doing it since I was little." The mention of his mother always made Mikey melancholy. It had been almost 2 years since she left for New York City, and they'd never heard from her again. "Do you think she's okay?" he asked his aunt one night in London. "I think so. Your mother is a strong woman." "Why hasn't she ever written?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Sometimes life complicates things for people. When we go back to the US, will we look for her?" "Yes, we will." When they returned to the US, the family had changed a lot. Gwen had completed a correspondence course in business administration. During the trip, Timmy could say a few words in English and French, and Mikey had become a global reference in animal communication. "Now you're citizens of the world," joked Dr. Stevens when he welcomed them at the airport. "We're still just small-town folks," Mikey replied with a smile. Back at the center, Mikey resumed his work with even more experience. But there was something different about him. The trip had shown him the scale of animal suffering in the world, and it made him feel a greater responsibility. "Doctor," he said to Dr. Stevens one morning, "I want to do something more." "What do you have in mind?" "I want to start a school." "A school?" "To teach people how to understand animals better, not just veterinarians and psychologists, regular people too." "That's an interesting idea. How would it work?" "It could be right here at the center on weekends. I'd teach what I know to anyone who wants to learn." The idea excited the whole team at the center. Within 3 months, they organized the first course in empathic communication with animals. "We're not promising that everyone will be able to do what Mikey does," Dr. Stevens explained to the first students. "But we'll teach you how to pay closer attention to the signals animals give." The course was a success. 20 people signed up for the first module, including veterinarians, pet owners, and even a police officer who worked with dogs. The first thing you need to understand," Mikey told the class, "is that every animal is always saying something. We're the ones who don't know how to listen." One of the students raised her hand. "How do we learn to listen?" "First, by paying attention. Second, by trying to understand what the animal is feeling. And how do we know what it's feeling? By observing its body, the eyes, the ears, the posture, and also by thinking about what it's been through in life." Mikey's lessons were unlike any academic course. He taught through practical examples, working with real animals in front of the students. "Look at this cat," he said in one class, approaching a feline rescued from the streets. "His ears are down." "What does that mean?" "That he's scared," answered a student. "Maybe. But look, his tail is curled around his body and his eyes are half closed. That's not just fear." "What is it then?" "Sadness. He's sad." "How do you know?" "Because I've felt that way too. When I was little and sad, I'd curl up and close my eyes." The simplicity of his explanation amazed the students. Mikey didn't use technical terms or complicated theories. He taught through experience and empathy. By the end of the first year of courses, over 200 people had attended Mikey's classes. Many reported that their relationships with their pets had improved significantly. "Mikey," said one of the students on the last day of the course, "how can I thank you for what you've taught me?" "You don't have to thank me. Thank your dog by taking good care of him." "I will," And if you see any animal suffering on the street, try to help. I'll try. Then you've already repaid what you've learned. That evening during dinner, Gwen mentioned the success of the courses. You're helping so many people, Mikey. I'm helping the animals. People are just learning to take better care of them. It's the same thing. It is, agreed Timmy, who was now 7 years old. If people take better care of animals, the animals will be happier. Exactly, said Mikey, smiling at his brother. 2 years after returning from their international trip, the family's life had settled into a happy routine. Gwen had finished her business degree and was now the general coordinator of the center. Timmy was doing very well in school and was starting to show interest in animals too. And Mikey had become a national reference in his field. That's when they received a letter that would change everything again. It's from New York City, said Gwen, examining the envelope. From the address where your mother said she was going to look for work. Mikey, now 11, felt his heart race. Is it from my mom? I don't know. Let's open it. The letter wasn't from his mother, but from a social worker. Dear family, we are trying to locate the children of Mary Elizabeth Wilson, known as Liz. We know she left 2 children in the care of an aunt in their hometown. Mary Elizabeth has been hospitalized in a public hospital in New York City for 6 months. She was in an accident and was badly hurt, but she's now recovering. She keeps asking to see her children, but doesn't remember the exact address of where they are. She only recalls it's in a small town in Texas. If this letter reaches the right people, please contact us as soon as possible. The letter included a phone number and the hospital's address. Gwen finished reading with tears in her eyes. Mikey and Timmy were silent, processing the information. Our mom is alive, Timmy finally asked. She is, Gwen answered, and she wants to see you. But is she hurt? She was. The letter says she's recovering. Can we go see her? Mikey asked. Of course we can. Let's call right now. The phone call was emotional. The social worker confirmed that Mary Elizabeth was indeed recovering and would be overjoyed to see her children. Is she able to travel? Gwen asked. Not yet. She's still in physical therapy, but visits are very important for her recovery. Then we'll go to New York City. When can you come? Tomorrow. That night, Mikey barely slept. He was anxious and happy at the same time. He was finally going to see his mother again. Do you think she's changed a lot? He asked his aunt. I don't know. It's been almost 3 years since we last saw her. What if she doesn't like the person I've become? Don't be silly, she'll be so proud of you. You think so? I'm sure you've helped so many people, saved so many animals. But what if she wants us to go back to our hometown? We'll talk about that when we get there. The trip to New York City was quiet. Everyone was lost in their own thoughts and expectations. The hospital was in an outlying area of the city. It was an old building, with long hallways and the smell of disinfectant. Room 237, said the receptionist, 3rd floor. In the elevator, Mikey held tightly to his aunt's hand. He was more nervous than he had ever been. Everything will be fine, said Gwen, trying to calm herself as much as her nephew. When they reached the door of the room, they could see a thin woman lying in bed, looking out the window. She had lost a lot of weight and her hair was shorter, but it was unmistakably Mary Elizabeth. Mom, Mikey said softly. Mary Elizabeth turned and, upon seeing her children, began to cry. My boys, my children. Mikey and Timmy ran to the bed and hugged their mother. The 3 of them cried together, 3 years of longing melting away in that moment. How you've grown, Mary Elizabeth said through tears. Mikey, you're a man now. And Timmy, you're so handsome. Mom, we missed you so much, said Mikey. I missed you too, my love, every single day. Why didn't you ever write? Mary Elizabeth looked at Gwen before answering. Because I didn't find what I came here for. I was ashamed to bring bad news. What bad news? I couldn't find. Steady work. I lived in bad boarding houses, went through hard times. I didn't want you to know I was failing. You didn't fail, said Gwen, stepping closer to the bed. You tried. I did try. But New York City is very hard for someone without an education. And the accident? Asked Mikey. I was working at a construction site, carrying bricks. A wall collapsed and caught me just right. I broke several ribs. And my leg. Did you suffer a lot? I did, but not as much as I suffered being away from you. Will you be okay now? Yes, the doctors said in 2 months I can leave here. And will you come back home? Mary Elizabeth looked at her children and her sister-in-law. I don't know if I still have a home. You do, said Gwen. The house is still there. I rented it to a family, but they can leave whenever you want to come back. But what about you? I heard you're living on a special ranch now. We are, said Mikey. I work there helping sick animals. Sick animals? It's hard to explain, but I found out I can talk to animals. Mary Elizabeth smiled for the first time since they arrived. You always could. Remember when you were 5 and said our cow was sad because she wanted a calf? I remember. And a week later we found out she was actually in heat. That's true. My boy was always special. Now he's famous, said Timmy. People from all over the world know about his work. Really? Really, Gwen confirmed. He's traveled to several countries teaching what he knows. Mary Elizabeth looked at Mikey with admiration. My boy has become important. I'm not important, Mom. I just like helping animals. That's what makes you important. They spent the whole afternoon talking. Mary Elizabeth wanted to know everything about her children's lives over the past 3 years. When she heard about the bet with the bulls, she laughed hard. I always knew you were brave, she said, but riding a bull, that was too much even, for you. I knew they wouldn't hurt me. How did you know? Because they told me they were just sad, not angry. And now what do you want to do with your life? Mikey thought for a few seconds. I want to keep helping animals, and I want my family together. Do you want me to come back? I want you to be where you're happiest. I'm happiest when I'm with you. Then come live with us at the center, Gwen suggested. There's work for you there too. What kind of work? Taking care of the house where we live and helping with the animals that come in hurt. I could do that. Of course you could, and we'd be together again. Mary Elizabeth was silent for a few minutes, considering the offer. Do you think I could handle starting over? You've always handled everything, said Mikey, and now we can help you. That's true, agreed Gwen. The situation is very different from 3 years ago. Now we have financial stability. But what if my problems disrupt your lives? Gus, what problems could possibly disrupt us? Asked Mikey. You're our family. Besides, Gwen added, the center has doctors and psychologists. If you need help readjusting, you'll have all the support you need. Have you already? Talked to the people there about this. Not yet, Gwen admitted. But I know they'll accept, especially after everything Mikey has done for the center. Mary Elizabeth looked at her children and saw the same kindness in their eyes that she had always admired. All right, she finally said. When I leave here, I'll go with you. The joy was overwhelming. Mikey and Timmy hugged their mother tightly, and Gwen felt a peace she hadn't known in years. The family would finally be whole again. There's one thing I want to ask of you, said Mary Elizabeth. What is it, Mom? Asked Mikey. I want you to teach me everything you've learned these past 3 years. I want to understand how you've grown so much. We'll teach you, Timmy promised, and you can help me with my homework. Of course. If I still remember how to do it. You will, Gwen said, and if you don't, we'll learn together. 2 weeks later, when Mary Elizabeth was discharged from the hospital, the family was there to pick her up. Dr. Stevens had not only approved her move to the center, but also offered her an official job. We need someone to care for the animals that arrive in very weak condition, he explained. It's a job that requires patience and tenderness, qualities I imagine Mikey's mother has. On the day of her discharge, Mary Elizabeth was nervous, but eager to start her new life. Mom, Mikey said as he helped pack her few belongings, you're going to love the center. There are so many animals that need love. Do you think I'll know how to care for them? You will. You've always known how to take care of everything. The trip back to the center was different from the way there. This time, the car was filled with conversation and laughter. Mary Elizabeth wanted details about every animal at the center. Are there horses? Yes, Timmy answered, and they're very beautiful. And dogs? Lots. Some were mistreated, but now they're happy. And cats? Those too. There's one that's just my friend. He doesn't like anyone else. How did you win him over? Mikey taught me how to talk to him. Talk? How? By paying attention to what he's feeling and speaking softly to him. Mary Elizabeth looked at Mikey through the rearview mirror. You've become a teacher, my son. Kind of. I teach people who want to learn how to understand animals better. And do they learn? Some learn very well. Others pick up a little. But everyone becomes more caring toward animals. That's what matters most. When they arrived, at the center, Mary Elizabeth was amazed by its size and organization. It's so beautiful, she said, taking in the facilities. And there's plenty of work to do, Gwen said. You'll love it. Dr. Stevens personally welcomed Mary Elizabeth and made sure to show her around. This will be your main responsibility, he said, stopping in front of a smaller building. This is where the newly arrived animals stay while they adjust. What would I have to do? Feed them, clean their spaces, give medicine when needed, and most importantly, give them love and attention. That I know how to do, Ace. I'm sure you do. Mikey must have learned his sensitivity with animals somewhere. Mary Elizabeth smiled. He's always been special, since he was tiny. Now he's helping the whole world understand that. That night, during the first family meal together in 3 years, Mary Elizabeth asked to say a prayer. Thank you, God, for bringing me back to my children. Thank you for them growing up so well without me. And thank you for Gwen taking care of them as if they were her own. Everyone at the table was moved. And thank you, she continued, for giving me a second chance to be the mother my children deserve. Mary Elizabeth's first weeks at the center were about adjustment. She threw herself into the work with an energy that surprised everyone, as if making up for those 3 years away. Mom, Mikey said one morning, you don't have to work so hard. Yes, I do, she replied, cleaning the pen of a baby rabbit that had arrived injured. I have a lot of lost time to make up for. You didn't lose time, you were trying to build a better life for us. I was trying to run from my problems, that's different. No, it's not. You were brave. Mary Elizabeth stopped what she was doing and looked at her son. You know who was really brave? You, riding those bulls to save our home. I didn't have a choice. Yes, you did. You could have given up when the colonel started making things difficult. I couldn't let us end up on the street. That's why you're special, my boy. You never give up when someone needs help. The conversation was interrupted by a truck pulling up to the center's entrance. It was an emergency. 15 dogs had been rescued from an abuse situation in a nearby town. Mikey, shouted Dr. Stevens, we need you. The boy ran to assess the situation. The dogs were in terrible shape, thin, hurt, and terrified. They won't let anyone near them, explained the vet who had brought them in. They're aggressive because of the trauma. Mikey watched the dogs through the truck's bars. Some barked furiously, others cowered in corners, shaking with fear. They're not aggressive, he said after a few minutes. They're panicking. Same thing, the vet said. No, it's not. Aggression and panic are handled differently. How? Do you know? By their eyes and the sounds they're making. Mikey slowly approached the truck. The barking grew louder, but he didn't back down. I know you're scared, he said softly. But it's over now. No one's going to hurt you anymore. Gradually, some dogs stopped barking and watched him curiously. How does he do that? The vet asked Dr. Stevens. It's a natural gift, something you can't fully teach. In 2 hours, Mikey had all 15 dogs step out of the truck willingly. It was slow, patient work, but no animal had to be forced or sedated. Unbelievable, the vet murmured. These dogs were impossible to handle when we rescued them. They just needed someone who understood how they felt, Mikey explained. Mary Elizabeth had watched from a distance. When her son finished, she went to him. How did you learn to do that? I didn't, I always knew. But when you were little, you didn't do things so amazing, because there weren't animals this hurt to help. Doesn't it scare you? Sometimes, but their fear is bigger than mine, so I forget mine to help with theirs. That night, Mary Elizabeth talked to Gwen about what she'd seen. Gwen, I didn't know my son had become this. This what? Someone so important, so special. He's always been special. You just didn't get to see it. Do you think I was wrong to go to New York City? Gwen thought before answering. I don't think you were wrong. I think you did what you thought was right at the time, and in the end, everything worked out. But if you had stayed, maybe we would have lost the house anyway, and Mikey would never have fully discovered his gift. You think so? I do. Sometimes life takes us down strange paths, but in the end, it all makes sense. I hope you're right. I am. Look how well your children have grown. Look how happy they are. It was true. Mikey and Timmy were visibly happy to have their mother back. The family was whole again. 3 months after Mary Elizabeth's return, the center received an unexpected visit. A TV crew wanted to do a story about Mikey's work. We don't want to expose the boy too much, Dr. Stevens told the producer. He's still a child. We completely understand. It would just be an educational piece about the importance of animal communication. And you'd respect the boundaries we set. Of course, the child's well-being is our priority. Mikey was nervous about the idea of being on TV. What if I say something wrong? He asked his mother. You never say anything wrong when you're talking about animals, Mary Elizabeth replied. It's the subject you know best in the world. But it's different on TV. Why? Because so many people will see it. What if they think I'm lying? No one will think you're lying. Everyone who knows you knows you're sincere. Mom, do you think I should do it? Mary Elizabeth looked at her son fondly. I think you should follow your heart. If you want to help more people understand animals, say yes. If not, say no. I want to help. Then say yes. The filming was scheduled for the following week. The TV crew arrived with multiple cameras and equipment. That left Timmy fascinated. Can I be on TV too? He asked the director. Sure, if your parents allow it. We don't have a dad, Timmy said matter-of-factly. Just Mom and Aunt Gwen. Then if they say it's okay. Mary Elizabeth and Gwen agreed that Timmy could appear briefly in the segment. The filming began with Mikey explaining how he discovered his gift with animals. I started noticing I could understand what animals were feeling when I was really little, he told the camera. My mom says I always knew when our cow was sick or when our dog was sad. And how do you communicate with them? The reporter asked. I don't exactly communicate, I listen. Listen how? I pay attention to their bodies, the sounds they make, the way they look at me, and I try to understand what they're feeling. And does it always work? Not always. Sometimes I'm wrong too, but most of the time I get it right. To demonstrate his work, Mikey was filmed interacting with several animals at the center. The crew was amazed to see how even the most skittish animals calmed down in his presence. This horse arrived here a week ago, he explained, approaching an animal that had been mistreated. He wouldn't let anyone near him. But today, I can already touch him. How did you manage that? I talked to him every day. I explained that he was safe here, and I gave him time to believe it. Do you really talk to animal? I do. So I don't know if they understand the words, but they understand the feeling. The segment aired the following week and caused a big stir. The center's phone wouldn't stop ringing with people wanting to learn more about Mikey's work. Is this good or bad? Mikey asked Dr. Stevens. It's good if we use it the right way. We can use this attention to educate more people. How? Maybe by creating more courses or writing a book about your methods. A book? Why not? You could. Share your story and teach what you know to people who can't come here. The idea of writing a book excited Mikey, but there was a problem. His writing was still limited. I can help you, Gwen offered. You talk and I'll write. Would it be like a biography? It would be more than that. It would be a guide for people who want to understand their animals better. And could I tell the story of the bulls? Of course. It's an important story. They began working on the book in their free time. Mikey shared his experiences, and Gwen turned his words into text. Auntie, he said during one of their writing sessions, do you think people will believe the story about the bulls? They will, because it's true. But it seems unbelievable. Many true things seem unbelievable. That doesn't mean they didn't happen. The work on the book stretched over several months. Mikey wanted every story to be told in detail, so people would understand not just what happened, but also how and why. During this time, the center continued taking in animals in difficult situations. Each case was a new lesson for Mikey and material for the book. One of the most striking cases was a dog who had been used for forced breeding and arrived at the center completely traumatized. "She won't eat, drink, or move," the vet explained. "She's been like this for 4 days." Mikey observed the dog, curled up in a corner of the cage, staring blankly. "She's not just traumatized," he said after a few minutes. "She's grieving." "Grieving? For the puppies they took from her. She doesn't understand where they are." "How do you know that?" "Because she has the same look my mother had when she had to leave us." The observation touched Mary Elizabeth, who was watching her son work. "What will you do?" she asked. "I'll explain to her that the puppies are okay, that they went to good families." "But you don't know if that's true." "No, but she needs to believe it to start living again." Mikey spent hours whispering to the dog, telling stories about happy puppies in loving homes. Gradually, the animal began showing signs of interest in the world around her. "Is she believing what you're saying?" Mary Elizabeth asked. "She wants to believe. Sometimes that's enough." 2 weeks later, the dog had fully recovered. She was eating, playing, and even showing affection to the caregivers. "How did you know exactly what to say to her?" the vet asked. "I put myself in her place. I thought about what I'd want to hear if I were in her situation." "And does that always work?" "Most of the time. When you understand someone's pain, it's easier to help." This experience became one of the most important chapters in the book they were writing. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. 6 months after they began working on the book, they received unexpected news. A publisher had learned about the project and wanted to publish it. "They believe it could be a success," said Dr. Stevens, who had acted as an intermediary in the negotiations. "Success how?" Mikey asked. "Selling many copies, helping many people. And that's good? It's wonderful. It means your message can reach thousands of people who'd never come here. But I'll keep working at the center, right?" "Of course. The book is just a way to expand your work." The news of the book's publication sparked even more media interest. Mikey was invited for interviews on several radio and TV stations. "I don't know if I want to be famous," he confessed to his mother. "You're not becoming famous because you want to. You're becoming known because you have something important to teach. What's the difference?" "The difference is that you can use this fame to help more animals." "How?" "The more people know about your work, the more animals can be saved by owners who've learned to understand them better." Mikey considered his mother's words and decided to accept the interviews, always focusing on educating people about animal welfare. During one of these interviews, he was asked a question that made him reflect deeply. Mikey, the host, asked, "Do you think everyone can develop the ability to communicate with animals?" "I think everyone can learn to understand animals better," he replied. "Maybe not the way I do, but they certainly can." "How?" "By paying attention, being patient, and most of all, trying to understand what the animal is feeling." "And does that make a difference in people's lives?" "It makes a big difference. When you understand your animal, both of you become happier." "Do you have plans for the future?" Mikey thought for a few seconds before answering. "I want to keep helping animals, and I want to teach more people to do the same." "Anything specific?" "I'm thinking of starting a school, a place where people can come to learn about animal communication." It was the first time Mikey had spoken publicly about this idea, but as he said it, he realized it was truly what he wanted to do. After the interview, he talked to his family about his plan. "A school would be wonderful," said Mary Elizabeth. "You could teach so many people." "But it would be very expensive to set up," said Gwen, always practical. "Maybe not," said Dr. Stevens, who had been listening. "If the book succeeds, you'll have the resources, and I'd bet there'd be interested investors." "Investors?" "People or companies who believe in the project and would invest money to make it happen." "And in return?" in return for a share of the profits, or simply because they believe in the cause. The idea of the school began to take shape. Mikey spent hours imagining what it would be like, a place where people and animals could live, together harmoniously, learning from each other. "We could have horses for therapy," he said excitedly to Timmy, "and dogs to teach patience, and cats to teach respect for boundaries." "And rabbits?" asked his younger brother. "Rabbits, too, to teach gentleness. And birds? Birds to teach that freedom is important." Timmy grew thoughtful. "Mikey, can I help at the school?" "Of course, you can be my assistant. But I don't know how to talk to animals, like you do." "You're learning. And even if you don't learn the exact same way, you can help in other ways." "Like how?" "By taking care of the animals, helping the people who come to learn. There are lots of ways to help." The book was released 6 months later and, to everyone's surprise, became an instant success. Within 2 weeks, it was among the country's bestsellers. "People are really interested in the subject," the publisher said during a call. "We're thinking of doing a second edition." "Already?" asked Gwen, surprised. "Already, and we've also received offers to translate the book into other languages. Other countries want to publish it. Several. The United States, France, Germany, Japan. Mikey's book is going to be sold worldwide. If demand keeps up, yes." The news left the whole family emotional. Mikey couldn't believe his experiences with animals could interest people all over the world. "Mom," he said that night, "do you remember when I was little and you took me to see the animals at Uncle Joseph's ranch?" "I do. Did you ever think I'd write a book about it one day?" "I didn't think you'd write a book, but I always knew you had something special with animals." "And you weren't ever worried?" "Sometimes I did. I was afraid people would think you were strange." "Some did. But you never let that affect you. Because I knew I was helping the animals, and that was more important than people's opinions. That's why I'm so proud of you." With the success of the book, job offers began pouring in from all over the country and even abroad. Zoos, rehabilitation centers, universities, they all wanted Mikey's services. "It's tempting," he admitted to Dr. Stevens. "Some offers are very good financially." "But you're not interested." "I'm interested in helping, but I don't want to abandon the work we're already doing here." "You wouldn't have to abandon it. You could do occasional consulting." "Consulting?" "Short trips to handle specific cases. The rest of the time you'd be here working on your projects." The idea made sense. Mikey could expand his work without giving up the stability his family had built. "But I'd like to take my family on the trips," he said. "For the important ones, that could be arranged. Then I'll accept some offers." Mikey's first consulting job was at a zoo in Denver. A recently arrived Asian elephant was showing signs of severe depression. "He's not eating well, doesn't interact with the keepers, and spends all day standing in a corner," the zoo vet explained. Mikey observed the elephant for over an hour before approaching. "He's homesick," he finally said. "Homesick for what?" "His family, the place he was born, the scent of home." "How can we help?" "First, by talking to him, explaining where he is and why. Second, by creating an environment that reminds him of home." "How so?" "What kind of plants were in his natural habitat? What scents? What sounds?" "I'm not exactly sure." "Then we'll find out, and we'll bring those elements here." Working with the elephant took 2 weeks. Mikey spent hours each day talking to him, explaining his new situation and helping him adjust. "How do you know if he understands?" asked Mary Elizabeth, who had accompanied her son on the trip. "By his posture. At first he was hunched, looking down. Now he lifts his head when I arrive. And that means what? That he's starting to trust, to believe he can be happy here." Gradually, the elephant began showing interest in his surroundings. He started eating regularly again and even played with the toys the keepers offered. "It's an incredible transformation," the zoo director said. "In 10 years in this field, I've never seen anything like it." "He just needed to understand he was safe," Mikey explained, "and that the people here truly cared about him." "How did you manage to convey that?" "By being honest. Animals know when we're lying, and you never lie to them. Never. Even when the truth is hard to accept." The success in Denver led to invitations from other places. Mikey began doing one consulting job a month, always bringing his family, when possible. Each case was a unique experience. In Washington, D.C., he worked with a jaguar rescued from animal trafficking. In Miami, he helped a group of dolphins being rehabilitated for release back into the ocean. "Every animal has a story," he said. In an interview, to help them, you have to understand that story. And how do you do that? By watching, listening, and most of all, respecting their time. Time for what? To trust, to heal, to accept that life can be good again. By age 13, Mikey was nationally recognized as an authority in human-animal communication. But he never lost the simplicity that always defined him. "Mikey," asked a journalist during an interview, "do you consider yourself a genius?" "No," he replied simply, "I just pay attention to animals." "But what you do is extraordinary." "It would be extraordinary if everyone did it. Animals have always tried to communicate with us. We just didn't know how to listen. And now we do. Some people are learning, more and more every day. Does that make you happy?" "Very happy, because it means fewer animals will suffer." A year after the book's release, Mikey finally secured enough resources to fulfill his dream, creating a school of animal communication. "It'll be on a 50-acre ranch," he explained to his family, "with horses, dogs, cats, rabbits, goats, all kinds of animals for people to learn from." "How will it work?" asked Timmy. "People will come spend a week here. During the day, they'll have theory and hands-on classes. At night, they'll sleep on the ranch living alongside the animals. And who will teach? I'll teach some. But we'll also have veterinarians, psychologists, biologists, people who understand animals from different perspectives. Will there be injured animals? There'll be a special rehabilitation wing. Students can observe the recovery process." "Sounds perfect," said Mary Elizabeth. "When do we start?" "In 6 months. We still have to prepare everything." The school's construction was an ambitious project. Beyond facilities for the animals, classrooms, dormitories, a specialized library, and even a small amphitheater for lectures were built. "It's bigger than I imagined," said Gwen, watching the progress. "It needs to be," replied Mikey. "We'll host people from all over the world." "All over the world?" "We already have registrations from 15 countries. The book sparked a lot of international interest." Indeed, the response had been astonishing. Foreign universities sent researchers to study Mikey's methods. Rehabilitation centers from various countries requested consultations. "Sometimes I can't believe how big this has gotten," said Mary Elizabeth. "Me neither," Mikey agreed. "But it's good. It means more animals will be helped. Don't you feel pressured?" "Sometimes, yes. But then I remember why I started doing this." "Why?" "Because the animals spoke to me and I listened. Nothing's changed. Only the number of animals I can help has grown." The School of Animal Communication opened on a spring Saturday. Over 200 people attended, including national and international media representatives. "Welcome to the realization of a dream," Mikey said in his opening speech. "This school exists for one simple thing: to help humans and animals understand each other better." "How exactly does it work?" asked a reporter. "People will learn to observe animals without judgment, to listen without speaking, to understand without explaining. And can that be taught? It can be developed. Everyone is born with the capacity for empathy. They just need to learn to use it with animals too." "What's your ultimate goal?" Mikey thought for a few seconds before answering. "That one day rehabilitation centers for mistreated animals won't be needed anymore, because people will know how to care for them properly from the start." "Is that possible?" "I believe so. It might take generations, but it's possible." The first class had 20 students from 8 different countries. It was a diverse group: veterinarians looking to refine their skills, pet owners seeking better relationships with their animals, researchers interested in animal behavior. "Let's start with the basics," Mikey said in the first lesson. "Who here thinks they know what their animal is thinking?" Several hands went up. "All right, now tell me, how do you know?" "By their expression," said one student. "By their behavior," said another. "From years of experience working with them," added a third. "Perfect," said Mikey. "You already know the basics. Now we'll learn how to do this more thoroughly and precisely. The classes combined theory and practice. In the mornings, lessons on animal behavior, nonverbal communication, and comparative psychology. In the afternoons, hands-on work with the school's animals. "This horse is named Hope," said Mikey, approaching a mare rescued from abuse. "She arrived here 6 months ago, deeply traumatized. Who can tell me what she's feeling right now?" The students observed the animal for a few minutes. "She seems calm," said one. "But cautious," added another. "Very good. And how do you know that?" "Her posture is relaxed, but her ears keep moving, monitoring every sound." "Exactly. She's comfortable in this environment, but still alert to potential dangers. That's normal for animals with a history of trauma." "How can we help her trust more?" "By being predictable. Traumatized animals need to know what to expect. Surprises can reactivate their fear." Throughout the week, the students worked with various animals, each teaching specific lessons. "Cats teach us about respecting boundaries," Mikey explained. "They only approach when they want to, and we have to accept that. Dogs teach us about loyalty and forgiveness. Even after mistreatment, they can learn to trust again when shown kindness. Rabbits teach us about gentleness. They're so fragile that they force you to be delicate. And horses. Horses teach us about leadership. They follow those who show confidence and calm, not those who shout or force." At the end of the week, the students took practical assessments. Each had to demonstrate they could establish communication with an unfamiliar animal. "Remember," Mikey said before the evaluations began, "this isn't about controlling the animal. It's about understanding what they need." The results were surprising. Every student, to some degree, managed to establish some form of communication with the animals. "How is this possible?" asked a veterinarian from Germany. "In just 1 week?" "Because you already had the ability," Mikey replied. "You just needed guidance to develop it. And now? Now you return to your countries and apply what you've learned, and teach others. Is that how change happens?" "Yes, one person at a time, one animal at a time." The school's first class was so successful that demand for more spots arose immediately. Within 6 months, there was already a waiting list for the following year. "We'll have to expand," said Dr. Stevens. "The demand is much higher than we expected." "Expand how?" "More classrooms, more animals, more classes per month. And do you think I can handle it?" "Not alone, but some of your first students could return as assistants." The idea made sense. Mikey selected 5 former students who had shown a special aptitude to help with future classes. "You won't be teaching in my place," he explained. "You'll help me teach better." "How?" "Each of you has different experiences with animals. You can share those with the new students." "What if we make mistakes?" "You will. I do too. What matters is learning from them and improving." With the assistants' help, the school doubled the number of students it could accommodate, and the quality of teaching improved as each assistant brought unique perspectives. "It's amazing how differently each person connects with animals," Mikey remarked to Mary Elizabeth. "How so?" "You as a veterinarian connect through medical knowledge, Joe the rancher through hands-on experience, Anna the psychologist through emotional understanding. And is that good? It's wonderful, because it shows there isn't just one right way to communicate with animals. And what's your way? Mine is through feeling. I sense what they feel. And can that be taught? It can be developed. Each person has to find their own way." 2 years after the school opened, Mikey received an invitation that moved him deeply. The UN wanted him to speak at a conference on animal welfare in Geneva. "It's international recognition of your work," explained Dr. Stevens. "You'd be the youngest speaker in the conference's history." And what would I talk about? How effective communication with animals can reduce suffering and improve the quality of life for both animals and humans. Who would I be speaking to? Representatives from over 100 countries, scientists, politicians, activists, a lot of important people. Yes, people who can influence animal protection policies worldwide. Mikey felt nervous about the responsibility, but knew it was a unique opportunity to expand his impact. "Can I bring my family?" "Of course, everyone can go." The trip to Geneva was the family's first international experience together. Timmy, now 10 years old, was fascinated by the plane. "Next time I grow up, I want to be a pilot," he said. "I thought you wanted to work with animals like Mikey," said Mary Elizabeth. "I want both. I'll be a pilot who takes vets to care for animals in hard-to-reach places." Mikey smiled at his brother's simplicity. Timmy always found ways to connect his dreams. In Geneva, the conference brought together over 1,000 participants from around the world. Mikey had never spoken to such a large and diverse audience. "I'm nervous," he admitted to his mother before the presentation. "That's normal. But remember, you're talking about what you know best in the world. What if they don't believe me because I'm young? If they don't believe your words, they'll believe your results. You have a functioning school, a book translated into 15 languages, hundreds of success stories. That's true. Besides, you're not there to impress anyone, you're there to help animals." Mikey's presentation was titled Empathic Communication, a Bridge Between Humans and Animals. He began by telling the story of the bulls that changed his life. "I was 8 when I realized I could understand what animals were feeling," he told the packed auditorium. "I didn't know it was special. I thought everyone could." "How did you discover it was different?" asked one of the organizers. "When people started being surprised by what I did, and when I realized I could use it to help animals in pain." Mikey showed videos of his work at the school, explained his methods, and shared data on the effectiveness of his techniques. "The results are impressive," remarked an Italian researcher. "You rehabilitate animals in half the time of conventional methods." "Because I don't just treat the symptoms," Mikey explained. "I treat the emotional causes of the problem." "And can this be applied on a large scale?" "It can, as long as people are properly trained." "Do you have plans to expand your school?" "I do. We'd like to open branches in other countries and online courses for those who can't travel to Texas." The presentation was a success. After the talk, several countries expressed interest in collaborating with Mikey's school. "France would like to open a branch of your school in Paris," said the French representative. "We have resources and government support." "Germany is also interested," added the German representative. "Our country has a tradition of animal behavior research." "And Japan could be a hub for Asia," said the Japanese representative. Mikey felt overwhelmed by so many proposals. "I'll consider them all," he said diplomatically, "but I need to ensure any expansion maintains the quality of education." "How would you do that?" "By personally supervising the instructors' training and regularly visiting the branches." "Would that be feasible?" "It would be a challenge. But if it helps more animals, it's worth trying." Back in Texas, Mikey discussed the international proposals with his family. "These are incredible opportunities," said Gwen. "You could influence animal treatment worldwide." "But it's also a huge responsibility," Mary Elizabeth pointed out, "and a lot of time away from home." "That's true," Mikey agreed. "I need to think carefully before deciding." "What's your heart telling you?" asked Timmy. "My heart wants to help every animal in the world, but it also wants to stay close to family." "Then you have to find a way to do both," his younger brother said wisely. After several meetings with the school team, Mikey decided to accept 3 of the international proposals: France, Germany, and Japan. "We'll start slow," he explained. "One school at a time to make sure everything runs smoothly." "Which one first?" "France. It's culturally closer to Texas, and they have experience with alternative education." Implementing the first international school took a full year. Mikey traveled to France 6 times, selected and trained the local team, and adapted the curriculum for the European context. "It's harder than I imagined," he admitted during one trip. "Every country has different animal laws, different pet cultures." "But is it working?" asked the French coordinator. "It is. It just needs more time and patience than I expected." The French school opened 2 years after the Geneva conference and immediately drew interest from all over Europe. "The success has exceeded expectations," the French director reported in a video call. "We already have a 2-year waiting list. And the quality of education? Excellent. Students graduate with solid knowledge and confidence to apply the techniques." "So can we start planning the German school?" "Absolutely." The process repeated. In Germany, but this time Mikey had international experience and managed to open the school in just 8 months. "Every country teaches me something new," he said in an interview. In France, I learned about the importance of tradition. In Germany, about scientific precision. Does that change your method? It doesn't change the method, but it enriches how we teach. Every culture learns differently. What about the Japan school? That'll be the biggest challenge. Japanese culture is very different from the West, but it might also be the most interesting. By 16, Mikey was globally recognized as the leading expert in human-animal communication. He had schools in 4 countries, books translated into 25 languages, and had trained over 1,000 people. But what made him proudest wasn't the numbers or recognition. It was knowing thousands of animals were being treated better because of his work. "Aunt Gwen," he said one Sunday afternoon, "do you remember when we almost lost the house?" "I do. What a difficult time. But that's when I discovered my gift with the bulls." "Yes. Sometimes the hardest struggles lead to the greatest discoveries." "Do you think if life had been easier, I'd have found it?" "I don't know, but I do know everything happened at the right time." "How so?" "If you'd discovered your gift earlier, maybe you wouldn't have been mature enough to handle it. If he had found out later, perhaps he would have lost the purity that makes his work special. Do you think I still have that purity? I'm certain of it. You've grown, become more experienced, but you still have the same heart as when you were 8 years old." "I hope so." "I know so, because I saw you this morning talking to the new rabbit that arrived at the center. You spoke to him the same way you used to talk to Thunder." It was true. Even with all the fame and recognition, Mikey kept the same simplicity and genuine dedication to animals. At that moment, he didn't know the biggest test of his career was yet to come. 3 months later, Mikey received a phone call that would change everything again. It was from Colonel Richard. "Mikey, it's Richard Thornton." "Colonel, what a wonderful surprise. How are you?" "I'm fine, but I need your help with something urgent." "What happened?" "Thunder is sick, very sick. The vets don't know what's wrong with him, and he's not responding to any treatment." Mikey felt his heart tighten. Thunder had been the first animal to truly change his life. "What do the vets suspect?" "They say it might be depression. He stopped eating, won't move, doesn't interact with the other cows." "How long has he been like this?" 2 weeks. Every day he gets worse. And the vets can't figure out the cause." "No. That's why I thought of you. If anyone can figure out what's happening to him, it's you." "I'll come today." "Really?" "Of course. Thunder is special to me." Mikey cancelled all his appointments for the week and traveled to Texas with Mary Elizabeth. During the trip, he couldn't stop thinking about what might be wrong. "Do you think he's physically or emotionally sick?" his mother asked. "I don't know. But if the vets haven't found anything physical, it must be emotional. What could have caused it?" "Many things. Change of environment, losing a companion, trauma, loneliness." But Colonel Richard said he was in a pasture with other cows. Being physically together doesn't mean he isn't emotionally alone. When they arrived at the ranch, Mikey was shocked by Thunder's condition. The bull that had once been imposing and strong was now painfully thin, lying under a tree with empty eyes. "My God," Mikey murmured. "He's really sick." "Much worse than when he first came here," said Richard, who had visibly aged over the years. "Can I get close to him?" "Go ahead, he doesn't react to anything." Mikey slowly approached Thunder. The bull lifted his head slightly when he recognized him, but didn't show the joy of their past reunions. "Hi, my friend," Mikey said softly, stroking the animal's muzzle. "What's going on with you?" Thunder let out a low sound, almost like a groan. "You're hurting, aren't you?" Mikey continued. "But why?" Mikey observed Thunder for over an hour, noting every detail of his behavior. "Colonel," he finally said, "what changed in Thunder's life these past few weeks?" "Nothing special. He was fine until 2 weeks ago." "Nothing in his environment, the other animals, his routine?" Richard thought for a moment. "Well, Daisy died about 3 weeks ago." "Who was Daisy?" "An old cow who'd been in the pasture with him for 4 years. "Were they close?" "Inseparable. Always grazed together, slept near each other." Mikey closed his eyes. He had his answer. "Thunder is grieving," he said. "Grieving? Yes. He's suffering from losing Daisy. But they're animals." Animals grieve too, Colonel, especially when we lose someone we love. What can we do? Help him process the loss, like we do with grieving humans. How? First, by acknowledging that his pain is real. Second, by giving him time to process it. Third, by gradually reintroducing joy into his life. And that will work. I hope so, but it will take time. Grief doesn't heal quickly. Mikey spent the whole week at the ranch working daily with Thunder. He talked to him about Daisy, about longing, about how hard it is to lose someone you love. "I understand your pain," he said during one of their sessions. "I've lost important people too, and I know how much it hurts." Gradually, Thunder began showing small signs of improvement. He started eating small amounts again, stood up more often, and paid attention to the sounds around him. "It's working," Richard said on the 5th day. "He doesn't seem so lifeless anymore." "He wasn't lifeless," Mikey corrected. "He was deeply sad. It's different." "And now?" "Now we keep working. Grief is a long process." By the end of the week, Thunder had improved significantly. He was still sad, but no longer seemed in danger. "How long until he's back to normal?" Richard asked. "He may never be exactly the same as before," Mikey answered honestly. "Losing someone changes us, but he can learn to be happy again in a different way. What do I need to do?" "Keep giving him special attention, talk to him, and above all, be patient. Can you come back to check on him? I can visit once a month for the next 6 months to see how he's progressing. I'll pay for your trips." "That's not necessary. This is personal. Thunder changed my life. It's the least I can do for him." Over the following months, Mikey made monthly visits to monitor Thunder's recovery. Each visit showed progress. The bull regained weight, interacted more with the other animals, and showed interest in his surroundings. "It's amazing," Richard said on the last visit. "He's not the same as before, but he's clearly better. He's learned to live with the longing," Mikey explained. "He hasn't forgotten Daisy, but he's accepted she's no longer here." "How did you know that's what happened?" "Because I've felt the same way. When my mother left, I was also sick with grief." "And how did you heal?" "By accepting that sometimes the people we love have to go, but the love we feel for them stays forever." "Do you think Thunder understands that?" "I do. Animals are very wise when it comes to loss, sometimes wiser than humans." Thunder's recovery became an important case study for Mikey's work. It proved that animals truly grieve and can be helped through it with proper support. "This case changed my understanding of animal emotional intelligence," he said at a scientific conference. "We've shown that bulls can form deep emotional bonds and genuinely suffer from loss." "And does this have practical implications?" "Many. It means when we separate animals that have lived together, we need to consider the emotional impact. It means grieving animals need special care." "Are you developing protocols for this?" "We already are. A care guide for grieving animals." The guide became a global reference for veterinarians and animal caregivers. It was used in zoos, farms, vet clinics, and rehab centers. By 18, Mikey had revolutionized how the world saw the relationship between humans and animals. His schools trained hundreds of people each year. His books were read in dozens of countries, and his methods were applied by thousands of professionals. But for him, the most important thing was knowing that every animal helped meant less suffering in the world. "Mikey," Mary Elizabeth said one morning on his birthday, "do you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up?" "I do. I wanted to help animals." "Did you succeed?" "I achieved more than I ever imagined." "And now, what do you want for the future?" Mikey thought for a few seconds. "I want a day when people like me won't be needed anymore." "What do you mean?" "I want a day when everyone naturally knows how to treat animals well, when they won't need to learn it in special schools." "Do you think that's possible?" "I do. It might take generations, but it's possible. Every person who learns teaches others. Every child who grows up knowing how to care for animals will teach their own children." "And you'll keep teaching until that happens?" "I will. That's why I discovered my gift." At that moment, looking through the window of the school he had built, seeing students from all over the world learning to communicate with animals, Mikey remembered the 8-year-old boy who rode a bull to save his family's home. So much had changed since then. He had grown up. The family had rebuilt. Unimaginable achievements had been reached. But deep down, he was still the same boy who heard the suffering of animals and wanted to help. "Mum," he said, turning to Mary Elizabeth, "thank you for letting me talk to animals when I was little." "Thank you for what?" "Because many people might have found it strange and forbidden me, but you always supported me, because I knew you had something special, even when I didn't quite understand what it was. And now you do. Now I understand you have the gift of empathy, and that you chose to use it to lessen suffering in the world." "That's exactly it." "Then keep doing it. The world needs people like you." 2 years later, Mikey received a call that moved him deeply. It was from one of the first students of his school. "Mikey, I have amazing news to tell you." "What happened?" "Remember what you taught us about listening to animals before diagnosing?" "I do. I saved a dog's life today because of that." "How?" "A dog was brought to my clinic with symptoms that looked like poisoning. The tests showed nothing conclusive. But when I used your techniques, I realized he was trying to tell me something specific." "What?" "That he had terrible ear pain. We investigated further and found a brain tumor affecting his balance and causing nausea. And you were able to treat it." "We did. If we had focused only on the poisoning symptoms, we wouldn't have found it in time. I'm so glad it worked out." "Mikey, this wouldn't have happened without what I learned at your school. You literally saved this dog's life." "No, you saved him. I just taught you how to listen." "It's the same thing." "It's not. Teaching is planting a seed. You made it grow and bear fruit." Calls like this came almost daily. Former students reporting successes, vets applying the techniques, pet owners improving their relationships with their animals. "This is how change happens," Mikey said to Timmy, now 15 and helping with the school's administration. "One person at a time, one animal at a time." "Do you think we'll really change the world?" "I think we already are, slowly, but we are." "How do you know?" "Because today, there are thousands of people using these techniques around the world, and each one is making life better for countless animals. And that's enough for you. More than enough. It's all I ever wanted." Just then, a new student arrived at the school. A 10-year-old boy brought by his parents because he showed a special connection with animals. "He reminds me of you when you were little," Mary Elizabeth remarked, watching the boy effortlessly talk to the rabbits. "He really does," Mikey agreed. "Maybe he's the next generation." "What will you teach him?" "The same thing I learned on my own, to listen with the heart." "What if he develops an even greater gift than yours?" "That would be wonderful. It means the work is evolving." "You wouldn't be jealous?" "Jealous?" Mikey laughed. He'd be proud. The goal was never to be the best. It was to improve animals' lives. As he watched the boy interact with the animals, Mikey remembered the words his mother had told him years before. Sometimes the greatest challenges lead to the greatest discoveries. If they hadn't almost lost the house, he would never have met Thunder. If he hadn't met Thunder, he would never have fully discovered his gift. If he hadn't discovered his gift, thousands of animals around the world wouldn't have been helped. "Everything happened at the right time," he murmured, repeating Aunt Gwen's words. "What did you say?" asked Timmy. "Nothing. I was just thinking about how interesting life is." "Interesting how? How a $50,000 bet can change the world." Timmy smiled. "You didn't change the world, Mikey. You changed how the world sees animals." "It's the same thing." "Yeah, it is." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your honest thoughts in the comments. Do you think Mikey made the right choices by dedicating his life to animals? We'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.